Good morning. The committee will come to order. The Oversight Committee exists to secure two fundamental principles. First, Americans have a right to know what they get from the money Washington takes from them and that it is well spent. And second, Americans deserve an efficient, effective government that works for them. Our duty on the Oversight and Government Reform Committee is to protect these rights. Our solemn responsibility is to hold government accountable to taxpayers, because taxpayers have a right to know what they get from their government. We will work tirelessly in partnership with citizen watchdogs to deliver the facts to the American people and bring genuine reform to the U.S. government bureaucracy. Today we have a distinguished panel, and today we will hear from 5 commissioners in what I believe will be an extraordinary hearing, one in which an independent commission that Americans rely on to ensure that we have safe and reliable nuclear power, and particularly safe nuclear power. It has become a concern to this committee that, in fact, the Commission is not operating in a way that can continue. I will not prejudge anyone's motives. I will not prejudge here today anyone's testimony. But I am deeply concerned that a Commission is not, in fact, an autocratic agency. It is not, in fact, the office of any one person. For a Commission to work successfully, or any agency that has a board, whether it's the National Transportation Safety Board or a host of others that we rely on for safety particularly, it has to lead by consensus. Doing the basic arithmetic, this is a 3 Democrat, 2 Republican Commission. If it were 3 and 2 the other way, or any combination, it should work and work by consensus. The history of this agency, of this Commission, has been generally to work by consensus or near consensus. The committee will examine today whether, in fact, under current commissioners and current structure, this Commission can get back to working on a consensus-like basis. Ultimately, all 5 of you are charged with the same level of responsibility and the same obligation to sound science and sound safety. On a personal note, I have 2 active reactors in my district. Like anyone who has nuclear power in their district, every day we ask, is it safe? And we're answered yes. And every day we ask, could it be safer and more reliable? We want that answer always to be increasingly yes. So as we hear from members on the dais and then hear from our witnesses, I think you'll hear that all of us have the same concern. One of the ranking members, Mr. Kucinich, has been actively involved in his nuclear power plant for many years. But whether you have nuclear power in your district or not, we all understand that if all our nuclear power plants went down in America, the lights would go out. There is not sufficient replacement power today or in the foreseeable future to live without the highly reliable base load that comes from nuclear energy. So as we hear from all of you, I intend to allow each of you to deliver your full opening statements and a reasonable amount of additional remarks if they are beyond what your opening statement is. I then intend to be very, 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 very willing to hear you give a complete answer to any question. That's not to say that members on the dais can go to 4 minutes and 59 seconds and then somehow find a question. But I want to hear from each of you. This is not one in which anyone on the dais here today, to the best of my knowledge, has the capability of taking the seats you occupy. We have to rely on what we learn here today to know whether or not this Commission can operate at the level that is essential if we are going to have safe nuclear power in this country. And with that, I recognize the ranking member for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In March of this year, a massive earthquake and subsequent tsunami killed more than 20,000 people and devastated northern Japan. It caused catastrophic damage at 4 of the nuclear reactors at the Fukushima power station. This was the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl 25 years earlier. Our #1 priority on this committee must be ensuring that we learn the lessons of the Fukushima disaster and take appropriate action to improve the safety of nuclear power plants in this country. Yesterday, the Union of Concerned Scientists issued a statement imploring our committee to focus today's hearing squarely on these safety issues. Dr. Lesbeth Grunland, a physicist and co-director of Global Security Program at UCS, urged the committee to focus on the safety issues facing U.S. reactor fleet rather than on NRC's internal squabbling. And let me say this on behalf of the American people. I ask that, and you, Chairman Jacko, and to the other commissioners, I ask that you not allow your disagreements to become the enemy of the destiny of this great organization. I also ask that you not allow your squabbling to have the effect of being a weapon of mass distraction. That is so important. I strongly agree with the statements of Ms. Lundgren. The single most critical issue facing the NRC today is how it will respond to the Fukushima crisis. 5 months ago, a task force of career NRC staff issued 12 recommendations intended to make U.S. nuclear power plants safer. In October, the staff prioritized 8 of these recommendations. According to the staff, these recommendations have the greatest potential for safety improvement in the near term and should be started without delay. For example, one of the key problems in the Fukushima disaster was that the tsunami knocked out the station's backup power, causing temperatures to rise in 4 reactors and resulting in a substantial release of radiation. NRC staff has recommended that all existing and new reactors in the United States strengthen their capabilities to mitigate these types of blackouts. I look forward to hearing the views of all the commissioners today on how we can implement this and other reforms as soon as possible. With respect to the allegations of mismanagement, let me say this. I agree that it is a serious matter when 4 commissioners write a letter to the White House criticizing the chairman for creating a chilled work environment. These allegations should be taken seriously, which the White House has done. And I don't plan to be a referee. I believe that you should be able to work out these disputes among yourselves. Based on my review of this issue, however, I also believe that the current chairman has exhibited one of the strongest safety records of any previous NRC chairman. I would urge anybody interested in this issue to read the harrowing transcripts of the recordings from the Emergency Operations Center stood up by the chairman to help the people of Japan and the United States citizens in close proximity to Fukushima and danger zone. You will be impressed by the skill and courage of those who worked around the clock to prevent this disaster from becoming far worse. As a result, I'm struggling to determine how much of this squabbling relates to personality conflicts and how much relates to a fundamental disagreement about the statutory structure of the Commission itself. The Inspector General, after interviewing all 5 commissioners and senior NRC staff, concluded that the chairman acted within his authority. The General Counsel of the NRC agreed after examining the chairman's actions relating to Fukushima. He wrote in an opinion that the chairman's actions fit within his authorities. Similarly, our committee's own investigation, which has included transcribed interviews of 15 senior NRC staff and the review of thousands of documents, has uncovered no violations of law or instances in which the safety of U.S. nuclear facilities have been placed in jeopardy. The truth is that when Congress reorganized the NRC in 1980, it created a structure with a very strong chairman. As President Carter said at the time, the experience of the 3 Mile Island demonstrated that the Commission as a whole cannot deal expeditiously with emergencies. Moreover, this is not the first time there has been conflict between the NRC chairman and the other commissioners. A 1999 report by the Inspector General described a very similar situation and found that the statutory structure of the NRC leads to tensions between the chairman and other commissioners. Finally, the natural question is, where do we go from here? Based on the letters all 5 commissioners have sent to the committee in preparation for today's hearing, I believe they are all willing to fulfill the fundamental mission of the NRC. I sincerely hope that we can use today's hearing as an opportunity to get beyond past differences and refocus our energies on the goal of nuclear safety. And I remind the commissioners, when the hearing is over, when the lights are down and the cameras are out and the reporters are gone, you all still have to return to your workplace and work together to protect the safety of all Americans. And with that, I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I now recognize the chairman of the Subcommittee on Regulatory Affairs, the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Jordan, for 5 minutes for an opening statement.
I thank the chairman, and I'll be very brief. And I just want to thank the chairman for having this important hearing today, and remind the committee that this is in no way a partisan issue. This is about an important commission who seems to be, based on some of the things we have said, not functioning the way we would want, maybe even use the term dysfunctional. And I think it's important to hear from all of them, ask the appropriate questions, and get to the bottom of this. This is a commission charged with making sure nuclear power plants are safe, and that's an important task. That's all about good government, and this is the appropriate venue to have this discussion and this hearing. So I just want to thank the chairman and would yield back the balance of my time. I know the ranking member of our committee wants to make an opening statement as well.
I thank the gentleman. We now recognize the ranking member of that same subcommittee, the other gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Kucinich, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for calling this hearing. Safety is the issue. I take it personally. This affects my state and my area. In February 2001, the NRC began investigating an aging mechanism that often caused cracking in reactors. As a result of these findings, in late September 2001, the NRC determined that the Davis-Besse plant was at risk and should shut down by December 31, 2001. First Energy, the owner of the Davis-Besse plant, which is in Port Clinton, Ohio, resisted the order, claiming that it could stay open without incident until March 2002. First Energy argued that a shutdown would cause an unnecessary financial burden. Rather than following its own safety procedures and shutting down Davis-Besse, the NRC relented and allowed the plant to operate until February 2002. After the plant had been shut down, workers repairing one of the 5 cracked control rod nozzles discovered extensive damage to the reactor vessel head. The workers found a large corroded crater the size of a football in the reactor vessel head next to one of the nozzles. Only 3/16 of an inch of steel remained intact at the bottom. That began to bulge and crack. The NRC later found that the plant might have been as close as 60 days from bursting. If it did, they would have had a major release of radioactivity. It would have jeopardized the immediate and long-term safety of millions of Americans, not to mention the single biggest source of fresh water in the world being jeopardized in the Great Lakes. The Government Accountability Office later weighed in on this, calling it, quote, the most serious safety issue confronting the nation's commercial nuclear industry since 3 Mile Island. The Department of Justice said that First Energy admitted that they knowingly, quote, knowingly made false representations to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in the course of attempting to persuade the NRC that its Davis-Besse nuclear power station was safe to operate beyond December 31, 2001, unquote. First Energy's insurance company became worried and commissioned an independent study to analyze the data from the incident. The study, which was released in April 2007, painted an even darker picture that the regulatory rebukes that came before it. The report found that the corrosion of the steel plate happened at a faster rate than was reported by First Energy, bringing the reactor closer to a catastrophe incident than had previously been reported. Now, despite the finding of these 3 bodies, just a few weeks before that study was released, First Energy asked the NRC to remove the requirement for independent assessments of Davis-Besse's operations. They asked for less oversight. The NRC's 2004 confirmatory order modifying license lists some of FirstEnergy's malfeasant policies and actions that led to the 2002 incident, providing more evidence that profits were prioritized over safety. It specifically lists the key reasons the leak was allowed to persist and grow. FirstEnergy's self-policing mechanisms failed. Worst, FirstEnergy tried to convince the NRC the problems were solved when, in fact, they were not. FirstEnergy continues to try to prioritize profits over safety. Since I don't have time here to cover in detail the full history of FirstEnergy's bad decisions, near misses, and safety lapses, I ask unanimous consent to place into the record a document prepared by Beyond Nuclear, which does that, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection, so ordered.
Several weeks ago, FirstEnergy had to shut down Davis-Besse to replace yet another reactor head because its design has flaws which creates leaking problems. In doing so, they found cracks in a building designed to protect the core from external missiles like planes, but also to prevent the release of radioactive air and steam in the event of a problem with the reactor. The latter scenario is what almost happened in 2001 at Davis-Besse and is exactly what happened at Fukushima when the containment buildings blew up from the steam buildup. A structurally compromised building affords less protection to protect the public. True to form, there were important differences between the story FirstEnergy told the public and the real story, which I only uncovered because of my own investigation and because of my staff. Specifically, FirstEnergy tried to convince the public that the cracks were only cosmetic in nature, were few in number, and were not widely distributed. None of the above was accurate, and yet FirstEnergy was eager to restart Davis-Besse, even though they will not know the cause of the cracking until February. We should be looking at this. The corporations that run nuclear power plants are fundamentally no different than the corporations that drove our economy off a cliff. They will cut corners to maintain or increase profits in the absence of sufficient incentives to act differently. They must be sufficiently and carefully regulated. The consequences of failing to do so are unthinkable. I hope we will reflect on the NRC's position here and help to achieve a culture of independence, objectivity, and public interest over corporate interest, and that will have complete dedication to safety. I thank the Chair for calling this hearing and for your attention to this critical matter at this time.
I thank the gentleman, and I look back fondly on the years we've worked on this issue together on the committee, with each of us at different times being a subcommittee chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We now recognize our panel of witnesses. Mr. Gregory Jasko is the chairman of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The chairman is I think, a particle physicist, to be more accurate, and an experienced policy advisor who has served in the Commission since 2005 and has served on both sides of the dome, both in the House and the Senate in the past. Commissioner Christine I'm going to try this again. Shiznicki? Shavinki. Okay. And I grew up near Slavic Village, and I should be able to do these names better. Is an experienced nuclear engineer, a policy advisor who came to the Commission in 2008. Commissioner William Magwood, the fourth. Commissioner Magwood joined the Commission just in 2010. He previously served 7 years as Director of Nuclear Energy at the Department of Energy. Commissioner William Ostendorf. Commissioner Ostendorf came to the Commission last year after a distinguished career in the nuclear Navy and much time also with the Department of Energy. And then Commissioner George Erpastolakis. Thank you for being understanding. The Commissioner is an expert in risk assessment and came to the Commission in 2010 after many years as a professor at MIT. Gentlemen and lady, pursuant to the rules of the committee, all witnesses here will be sworn. Would you please rise to take the oath and raise your right hands? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Let the record indicate all witnesses answered in the affirmative. Please be seated. As I said earlier, nobody on the dais here knows anything other than what we've heard. You're here today, so we hear all of you. So I will ask you to try to come close to 5 minutes. I'm not going to gavel people if they're going through with their statements, and I'm likely also going to be very generous in your response times so that we can fully hear from all of you here today. Chairman Jasko, would you please go first?
Well, thank you, Chairman Issa and Ranking Member Cummings and members of the committee. We have been asked to appear before you today to discuss the management and operations of the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission. This year, 2011, has been an exceptionally challenging and productive year for the NRC. And as usual, the NRC staff has done an outstanding job over the past year, and the agency once again scored among the top tier of Federal agencies in the 2011 Best Places to Work in the Federal Government rankings, scoring #1 in all 4 major indices. At the NRC, we anticipated that 2011 would be a busy but unexpected issues, most notably the Fukushima Daiichi accident and multiple natural disasters, including flooding in the Midwest in June, the earthquake on the East Coast in August, and other serious threats, such as hurricanes and tornadoes, created additional pressures for the staff at NRC's headquarters and regional offices. In spite of those challenges, the staff and the Commission remained focused on our critical safety mission. During the past fiscal year, we performed thousands of hours of inspections at nuclear power plants and materials sites, took hundreds of enforcement actions, reviewed more than 1,000 licensing actions and tasks, and issued a number of new regulations. And we completed a very important final safety culture policy statement. The NRC has conducted a greater number of special inspections in the past year, 21 to date, than at any point in recent memory. During the past year, we completed the safety and environmental reviews of the first 2 new reactor combined license applications and held mandatory hearings on both of these applications. And these were both historic actions by the Commission. We issued final safety evaluation reports for the AP1000 and ESBWR design certifications and issued 8 reactor license renewals. We also successfully completed 2 pilot applications for transition to our new risk-informed, performance-based approach to fire protection. And we held a meeting yesterday to talk about the progress that is being made on that issue. We issued 3 new uranium recovery licenses, authorized the restart of 1 uranium recovery facility, and issued the license for the Areva Eagle Rock Centrifuge Enrichment Facility to be built in Idaho. We also completed the orderly closeout of our Yucca Mountain activities and preserved the technical work in 3 technical reports, more than 40 other reports, and in videotaped staff interviews. We have also approved cybersecurity plans for all nuclear power plants, published approximately 30 new guidance documents, and hosted the first integrated regulatory review service mission to the United States, and that is an international peer review mission that is done under the auspices of the International Atomic Energy Agency. Now, the Commission itself was also incredibly productive in 2011. My colleagues and I held 38 public Commission meetings, 10 closed meetings, and issued 92 staff requirements memoranda on substantive Commission voting matters. This was 30 more substantive Commission decisions than we completed in fiscal year 2010. And in line with our commitment to transparency and openness, we noticed more than 1,030 public meetings and improved and expanded our public outreach. Construction of our new 3rd headquarters building is also on schedule and on budget for opening in late 2012. And of course, the NRC undertook tremendous efforts in response to the March 11th earthquake and tsunami in Japan and the nuclear emergency at Fukushima Daiichi. In addition to monitoring the crisis and providing on-the-ground support in Japan, the Commission established a task force to review the accident and make recommendations to the Commission for enhancing reactor safety. This task force reported back with a comprehensive set of 12 safety recommendations addressing a broad range of issues. These recommendations have undergone additional reviews by the NRC staff, our Advisory Committee on Reactor Safeguards, and we have benefited from the insights of a broad range of stakeholders. The Commission has directed the staff to begin immediately implementing partially or fully 5 of the safety recommendations from the task force and set goals of completing station blackout rulemaking within 24 to 30 months and has encouraged completion of all actions within 5 years. Chairman Issa, Ranking Member Cummings, and members of the committee, this concludes my formal testimony today, and I would be pleased to respond to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner Svinicki, I'll get to it eventually.
Thank you, Chairman Issa, Ranking Member Cummings, and members of the committee for the opportunity to appear before you today. You have requested that members of this commission address the topic of management and leadership issues at the NRC. I have been privileged to serve as a commissioner of the NRC for over 3.5 years. During this time, the agency's approximately 4,000 technical, legal, and administrative staff members have impressed me with their professionalism and their unyielding commitment to the NRC's important missions of nuclear safety and nuclear security. Their efforts are led by a skilled group of senior executive service managers, most of whom have decades of experience, not just in Federal service, but specifically at the NRC. I have confidence in the work they do and believe the nation is well served by their constant vigilance on matters of nuclear safety and security. I appear before you today, however, to address topics related to the current functioning of the Commission itself and the engagement between the Commission and the agency staff. I have served as a Commissioner with 6 other individuals, 4 currently serving and 2 whose service on the Commission has ended, and under the tenure of 2 different chairmen. Although some amount of tension is expected in any deliberative body, I believe the level of tension among the currently serving members of this Commission is impeding the collegial processes of the NRC and is obstructing the functioning of key processes between the Commission and the agency staff. These tensions are rooted in an interpretation of the NRC Chairman's statutory authorities, as well as his conduct toward his Commissioner colleagues and the NRC staff. Despite these problems, I believe it is likely that the Commission would have continued its tug-of-war over these issues to the extent possible out of the public spotlight. Events of the past few months, however, pushed the Commission beyond its tolerance for current circumstances and led us to communicate our concerns beyond the Commission. As a result of interpretations of the NRC Chairman's authorities that grant the Chairman the authority to decide which issues appropriately involve any of the Commission's statutory functions, and to interpret for the agency staff the meaning of direction issuing from Commission decisions, the situation at the NRC has, in my view, become increasingly unworkable and threatens the viability of a functioning Commission structure. While the Reorganization Plan No. 1 of 1980 created certain administrative responsibilities, concentrated certain administrative responsibilities in the hands of the Chairman, the legislative history makes clear that it was not intended to displace the ultimate authority of the full Commission over the affairs of the agency. The plan itself includes a provision that the Commission may decide by majority vote in any area of doubt whether any matter pertains to one of the Commission's statutory function. In its deliberations on the plan, Congress also emphasized that the Commission shall have full access to all information within the agency, including that in existence and that which requires development by the staff. The Chairman may not withhold or delay providing information requested by the Commission. In both of these critical areas, however, I do not believe that the processes under the current Chairman satisfy the intent of the law. Over the past year and a half, the Commission has engaged in a protracted effort to resolve its disagreements over its respective roles and responsibilities through a comprehensive revision of its internal operating procedures. This effort proved ultimately unfruitful, however, in resolving the underlying disagreements. Exacerbating these long-standing disagreements are recent events of concern that have come to the Commission's attention. In October of this year, the Chairman appeared at an annual retreat held by the agency's Executive Director for Operations and senior agency staff. Within days of this event, a number of attendees from the retreat sought me out to express their strong reaction to the Chairman's statements. They described the content of his remarks as an expression of contempt for the Commission. It was described to me that the Chairman instructed those present to advance his agenda and that this must come at the price of having their own independent assessments and recommendations. The Executive Director for Operations described it to me by saying, "We were pretty much instructed to leave our brains at home." Hearing of this event was a formative moment in leading me to conclude that the points of tension between the Chairman and the Commission were no longer isolated to the Commission itself. Interference in the flow of information coming to the Commission was occurring to such a pervasive extent and was being conducted so brazenly that the Commission needed to take additional action. Another circumstance that I believe caused the Commission to bring these issues forward is the Chairman's continued outbursts of abusive rage directed at subordinates within the agency staff. All members of the Commission, including me, have been on the receiving end of this conduct, which was also acknowledged by the NRC Inspector General in his testimony before the House Energy and Commerce Committee Subcommittee on Environment and the Economy earlier this year. These incidents appear to have grown more frequent, however, and I am now aware of this conduct being directed against staff at various levels in the agency. Some of these employees have spoken to me privately of the embarrassment and humiliation of being made to lose their composure in front of their colleagues or to be seen exiting the Chairman's office in a state of obvious upset. I regret that we have come to this point, but our agency, one whose fundamental mission is to ensure the health, safety, and security of the American public, is premised on the variability of individuals to speak out. It is my hope that a positive lesson about the willingness to speak out will be drawn by not just the NRC staff listening to this hearing, but by all those responsible for safety and security across our government. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Magwood. If you could pull the mic just a little closer, they're not very good from a distance. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Yes. Chairman Issa, Ranking Member Cummings, and members of the committee, it's with considerable disappointment that I appear before you today to share my concerns regarding the management and leadership issues facing the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. I provided a written statement that asked to be included in the record. I'll try to summarize my comments.
Without objection, so ordered.
Let me begin by reassuring the public that the NRC staff has and continues to work diligently to carry out its responsibilities to protect the health, safety, and security of the American people. They are led by an excellent cadre of senior career managers who have done a fantastic job of insulating most of the staff from the serious problems that are the subject of this hearing. My colleagues and I have endured a rather distasteful and dishonest media campaign over the last week. We've seen a wide range of misleading and untrue reports about our motivations, our characters, and our commitment to safety. It's quite clear that this campaign is intended to divert the attention of Congress and the public from the very real concerns we have about the leadership of our agency. I do not intend to allow this tactic to succeed. However, one item I feel I must address concerns this Commission's commitment to safety. After 20 months of working with the people at this table, I can promise you that we all place the safety and security of the public we serve at the very top of our considerations. We do not always agree on how to achieve the goal of safety, and we always do not view issues the same way. But I believe we are all equally committed to the same goal. To impugn the motivations of members of the Commission because of disagreements on strategy or approaches is irresponsible. Now, as I discuss the real concerns facing us, I feel my true role before you today is to give voice to the dedicated men and women who serve the NRC, many of whom have come to me to discuss their concerns. First, I'm most concerned that the Chairman has made a regular practice of interfering with the ability of the Commission to obtain information from the NRC staff. He has asserted the authority to decide what information is provided to the Commission, when it is provided, and increasingly what the information contains when it reaches the Commission. This behavior is contrary to both the letter and intent of the reorganization plan, and no Commission could confidently carry out its legal obligations under these conditions. In my written statement, I outlined a specific example in which the Chairman prevented the staff from providing the Commission a voting paper regarding our program for fire protection at nuclear power plants. He went as far as to send someone to break up a staff briefing being held for myself and another Commissioner. For the record, we did not allow the briefing to end. It has become routine for individual members of the staff to come to Commissioners to alert us about issues they believe require Commission attention, but that staff can't get through the Chairman. That the Commission has come to rely on the personal bravery of individuals on the staff to keep us informed is a very sad statement. But what worries me most is the fact we don't know what we don't know. The second concern I raise is a growing cancer of a chilled work environment at the agency. As I outlined in my written statement, I have observed the effects of this chilled environment firsthand, and I believe the situation has actually worsened in recent months, and I think Commissioner Savinicky mentioned some of that. I'd like to move on to my final concern, however, which I raised concerning the Chairman's abusive behavior towards the staff. To understand this matter, I spoke with 3 of the women who have had personal experience with the Chairman's extreme behavior. These women remain very disturbed by these experiences. A common reflection they all shared with me was, I didn't deserve this. One woman said she felt the Chairman was actually irritated with someone else but took it out on her. Another told me she was angry at herself for being brought to tears in front of male colleagues. A third described how she couldn't stop shaking after her experience. She sat talking through what had happened to her with her supervisor until she could calm down enough to drive home. Senior female staff in an agency like NRC are tough, smart women who have succeeded in a male-dominated environment. Enduring this type of abuse and being reduced to tears in front of colleagues and subordinates is a profoundly painful experience for them. The word one woman used was humiliated. I must note that none of these women want to have their names used publicly. As another woman told me, it's embarrassing enough that I went through this. I don't want to be dragged through the mud before some congressional committee. These are major concerns facing the agency today. Blocking staff from providing information to the Commission, the creation of a chilled work environment, and the abuse of NRC staff. I do not believe that the fear, intimidation, and humiliation are the acceptable leadership tactics in any organization, least of all the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Thank you for your attention. I stand ready to answer any of your questions.
I thank you. Commissioner.
Thank you, Chairman, Ranking Member Cummings, members of the committee, for the chance to be here before you today. I served on this independent commission since April 2010. During that time, I've come to better appreciate the reputation the NRC has historically enjoyed as a competent regulator and a leader in nuclear safety, not only in the United States, but also in the international community. The reputation can be attributed to the employees of the NRC, who have shown dedication to the safety mission and the NRC's organizational values of integrity, service, openness, commitment, cooperation, excellence, and respect. For decades, these values have served as a guide for the operations of the NRC staff as well as for the Commission. These values have also historically fostered an open and collaborative workplace that brings out the best regulatory and technical judgments of the NRC staff without undue influence or pressure. Unfortunately, we find ourselves today in an environment where those historical values have been compromised and the agency's reputation placed at great risk. Left uncorrected, this trend damages the ability of the NRC staff and the Commission to carry out its nuclear safety mission for this country. I have over 30 years of service to this country. As a Rickover-era nuclear-trained submarine officer, I served on 6 submarines. I commanded a nuclear attack submarine for 3 years, had subsequent command of an attack submarine squadron of 8 submarines. I've been personally accountable to the United States government and the White House, the Department of Defense, for ensuring the safety of nuclear-powered warships. I take great pride in that service and in my own decision-making with respect to those principles that best ensure reactor safety. After retiring from the Navy in 2002, I worked upstairs the House Armed Services Committee as a counsel with oversight responsibility for atomic energy activities at the Department of Energy. Subsequent to that, I spent 2 years as a senior official at the Department of Energy, now with NRC. With significant experience in leadership positions dealing with nuclear oversight, whether it be nuclear weapons or nuclear power, I can honestly say to this committee that I have never seen an environment where the highest level of the organization does not reflect the values shared by the whole. Along with the 3 of my Commissioner colleagues who signed the letter on October 13th, who took the same oath to, quote, well and faithfully discharge the duties, unquote, of our office, I refused to be silent while damage was being done to the NRC's work environment. It is important to comment briefly on what I will label as an unprecedented action, the 4 of us writing a letter to the White House. That's the letter that this committee received last Thursday evening. This letter is not about politics. It was signed by 2 Democratic and 2 Republican members of this commission. I regret that that letter has been portrayed by many in Congress over the last 3 or 4 days as being politically motivated. I assure this committee it is not. It is not about Yucca Mountain. It is not about other policy disagreements. It is not about internal conflict between commissioners, though that is one element of our concerns. With great respect for the White House, I must take strong exception to White House Chief of Staff Daley's letter from Monday night that I believe mischaracterized the situation at the Commission. What is this letter about? This letter is about management actions that have significantly eroded the prized, open, and collaborative work environment of the NRC, our nation's nuclear safety agency. These actions have served to prevent the Commission from being fully informed of the NRC staff's views and recommendations. It is about behavior that, if exhibited by one of our NRC's regulated licensees, would be subject to investigation and potential enforcement action for a chilled work environment. It is about bullying and intimidating behavior towards NRC career staff that should not and cannot be tolerated. In light of our unanimous agreement that these actions cannot continue, the four of us fulfilled our oath of office and took what we viewed as appropriate action and wrote the White House. That letter clearly states our grave concerns. I appreciate this committee's oversight role. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Chairman Issa, Ranking Member Cummings, and members of the committee, good morning. Management and operation of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is an important subject. My perspective is grounded in my experience and observations as a member of the Commission since being sworn in on April 23, 2010, and my former role as a 15-year member and chairman for 2 years of the Advisory Committee on Reactor Safeguards, a statutory committee of technical experts. Management and operation of the Commission are carried out within an overall structure of law and policy. The Commission's independent and multi-member character, with staggered terms for its members, is designed to insulate regulatory decisions from political consideration and to provide stability for regulatory policy. Nuclear safety matters are technically complex. This Commission structure allows for a diversity of insights to be brought to bear in the Commission's decision-making. Under Reorganization Plan No. 1 of 1980, the Commission as a whole formulates policy and regulations, issues orders, and conducts adjudication. Policy formulation includes major administrative decisions with policy implications. The Commission has ultimate authority to determine by majority vote in an area of doubt whether any matter, action, question, or area of inquiry pertains to one of these functions. The Senate Committee on Governmental Affairs, in reporting on the reorganization plan, declared that, quote, "The committee also intends the Commission to exercise the authority to interpret the plan," end quote. The legislative history of the plan and the presidential messages to Congress in submitting the plan emphasize that the Chairman is subject to the policies of the Commission and the oversight authority of the Commission. As principal executive officer of the Commission, the Chairman has the ultimate responsibility to the Commission and the public for the proper day-to-day management and administration of the agency. However, the Chairman is statutorily responsible to the Commission for assuring that the Executive Director of Operations and the staff are responsive to the requirements of the Commission in the performance of its functions. The 1980 Reorganization Plan also provides that the heads of the offices of the General Counsel, the Secretary of the Commission, and the Advisory Committee on Reactor Safeguards shall continue to report directly to the Commission. The Chairman and the Executive Director, through the Chairman, are responsible for ensuring that the Commission is fully and currently informed about matters within the Commission's functions. The reporting relationship of the Executive Director to the Chairman is not intended to interfere with the ability of the EDO to make independent recommendations on matters that the Commission has delegated to him. While the Chairman has special responsibility for policy planning and development for the Commission could not function in any satisfactory way if the Executive Director or other senior managers were required to misrepresent or suppress their views or analyses. The Commission is well served by its dedicated staff, with many senior managers who bring long experience and advanced technical expertise. Their technical evaluations are essential to informed Commission decision-making. The transmission of adequate information and unbiased perspectives to the Commission for its decision-making and oversight is essential to the agency's mission of protecting public health and safety. I joined my fellow Commissioners to formally express our serious concerns regarding the Chairman's leadership. I regret that partisan or other ill motives have been ascribed to the action that we have taken. This could not be further from the truth. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of you for staying well under the 5 minutes. And again, all of your full written statements are, by committee rule, going to be in the record. I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes. Chairman, Who's your board of directors? For the people out there and sort of, you know, they don't know government necessarily, what's the equivalent of your board of directors? Who do you report to?
Well, I would say it's I'm responsible as the chairman of the commission to carrying out the policies that the commission as a whole.
But I appreciate that, but are you the CEO in your opinion?
I believe the statute describes the chairman as the principal executive, so that would probably be the.
So you view yourself as the chief executive officer,
right,
the chairman. Who's your board of directors?
I would say it's probably a combination of the commission, but the Congress as well, I think, serves a role in its oversight capacity to oversee the operation.
Do these gentlemen and lady sitting next to you, are they your board?
I think, yeah, that's certainly one way to characterize the commission as a structure that way, that they're responsible for establishing the policies of the agency, as I am a member of that as well.
Right, but if one of these 4 other members asks for a vote on something, and 4 of them vote that what you're doing is wrong, do you consider that to be persuasive, interesting, or obligatory?
Well, certainly, if the commission takes an action and we have formal procedures to carry out our actions, then of course those are actions that I would follow.
So if they ask to vote not to be locked out of getting information, as has been alleged under oath here, would you consider that that was your responsibility to ensure that they had full access to information and never again were in any way denied any information that you had?
Yeah, I believe the commission's provided a tremendous amount of information.
No, Chairman. We're real funny about this here. We want the answer exactly to the question we asked. Is it true that any information that you had has ever been withheld from any of these people on your request?
Not that I'm aware of.
So you've never asked to have any information. So basically, one of the commissioners just lied under oath is what you're saying.
Well, I work every day to ensure that the commission has the information it needs to carry out its responsibilities.
Not what it needs. If I understand the statute, they have full and unfettered, just as you do, rights to everything because they determine, as I understand it, as any commission would, and we produce commissions here all the time, they have to have everything, or at least everything they think they have. And what they don't know, they have a right to ask and know whether they really need to know it. Isn't that true?
Absolutely, and the commission routinely asks for information, and that information is provided.
Okay, well, obviously they disagree with you a little bit. You have a background. You're a physicist, not in nuclear, but in interesting stuff that I don't know anything about, so I'll just figure you're smarter than me on anything related to the science. But have you ever run an organization of 4,000 people?
No, this is the first time that I've done that.
What's the largest organization in which you were the CEO of in your career?
Well, I was responsible for managing my personal staff and as a commissioner, and prior to that I served in policy capacities.
So half a dozen or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Ossendorf, as a Navy captain, how many people worked for you?
Chairman, I had several different jobs in the Navy. As commanding officer of a submarine, I had 150 people. As commanding officer of a nuclear attack submarine squadron, 1,200. As principal deputy administrator at NSA, I was a chief operating officer for 2,500 personnel who were feds and 32,000 people who were management and operating contractors.
And from your leadership training over 30 years, from your years in the Navy, an autocratic organization, an organization in which you can go to jail for not obeying the lawful order of the ship's captain, you have said, signing on with the other commissioners, that this chairman has exceeded any semblance of the kind of authority that you believe he should have in his conduct, that he has had conduct, if I understand correctly, that does, and I know there's some debate about this, it does endanger safety because it's conduct that is demoralizing to an organization that, in fact, if my nuclear power plants in my district, if they had somebody like Chairman Jasko is alleged to be, you would shut down that site. You would view them as dysfunctional enough to be unsafe. Isn't that true? I'd
say, Chairman, I think if I understand your question correctly, that I do not believe that we have been kept fully informed of our staff's views and their technical analysis, their recommendations on more than one issue here in the last few months that directly could impact how we proceed with respect to the Fukushima reactor accident.
And I'd ask unanimous consent for 30 more seconds to have Commissioner Magwood, who I think talked on the same subject, if he has anything to say.
No, I think I would just simply add that there are clearly cases where my office has asked for information and been told we couldn't have it, and it's very black and white to me.
So the Chairman was less than truthful in saying that he's provided you information you requested always.
Well, I don't want to sit here and say that someone's not telling the truth. I just simply will tell you what my experience has been.
Thank you. The gentleman from Maryland, the ranking member, is recognized for 5 minutes. Actually, make that 6, please.
Thanks. Commissioner Savicki, first of all, I want to thank you I want to thank all of you for your testimony. I'm just sitting here and I'm just wondering what's going to happen after you go back. You know, we have no we are not experts up here on you know, dysfunction. The country at 8% says the Congress isn't functioning very well at all. So I don't want to sit here and tell you how to conduct your business. But I am concerned about some of the statements that have been made, particularly Chairman Jasko, with women feeling intimidated. That alarms me. As a father of 2 daughters, it does concern me. I want you to address that, please.
Well,
I mean, how do you feel about that? Is it true? I mean, do you think that's true?
I'm very passionate about safety, and all the things that I do at the agency are directed towards doing what I think is the right thing for safety. When I heard the incident, about the incident that I believe Commissioner Svinicki is referring to, I tried to think through all the many meetings we had together where we had very good discussions, sometimes disagreements about policy issues. And I believe there's one meeting that she may have been referring to. As I recall the meeting, I went to her office to speak with her about a letter, I believe it was. At a certain point, we were discussing it, and she became concerned. And as I recall, I simply motioned. I said, "Let's just sit down. Let's just calm down, and let's just work through it." We continued to discuss it, and then at some point I left.
Is this a situation when you all go back? I mean, you've apologized, have you not?
Certainly, if any, in many of these instances, this is the first time I've heard many of these accusations. And certainly, if there's ever been a time when I have made someone feel uncomfortable, I always like to know so that I can take whatever actions necessary to remedy that.
Yeah. Commissioner Savicki, you testified before the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works that you were never told that the Chairman was operating under his emergency authority until the NRC, Office of Congressional Affairs, informed the Senate. Do you remember exactly when that was and how far after the earthquake and the tsunami did you find out?
I don't recall the specific time period. If I recall the question that was posed before the Senate committee, I think it was was I informed that the Chairman had invoked his emergency authorities under Section 3A. So it was a very specific question about invocation of a provision of law, and I indicated that I learned of that when the Office of Congressional Affairs responded to a committee request. I don't recall how many months after the Fukushima event that was, sir.
Well, our committee staff conducted a transcribed interview with the NRC General Counsel who took a different view, and this is what he said. He said, "I've heard testimony that they were not informed that the Chairman was exercising his emergency power. However, the Commissioners all were informed that the Operations Center had gone into this monitoring mode soon after the Fukushima earthquake, and actually the beginning concerns for the reactors, Fukushima reactors, that had occurred. That Saturday, March 12th, I sat on a conference call in which the Chairman told each of the Commissioners, I believe each one of them was on the conference call, was explaining what was going on with respect to the reactor." Commissioner, were you on that call?
I was, sir, and if I may say that the General Counsel's response indicated that we were informed the agency was in the monitoring mode. The difference or the misunderstanding is that, in my view, that does not correlate directly to invocation of emergency authorities. The agency going into the monitoring mode does not necessarily invoke those emergency authorities under law.
And it seems fairly obvious that if the Commission was operating an emergency operations center, the Commission was responding to an emergency. Is that that's not, you disagree with that?
The agency has numerous times gone into the monitoring mode where the chairman of the agency has not invoked the emergency authorities. So I do not correlate being notified of being in the monitoring mode as an immediate invocation of those authorities, sir.
Okay, but you are, but there was an emergency operation. Is that right? I know that
yes, and other than the term being the same, again, and I apologize if my answer is complicated, it's simply that the agency going into a monitoring mode does not necessarily correlate or immediately invoke those emergency authorities.
So is your main objection that you did not receive some sort of a paper stating explicitly, or by the way, we are having an emergency? Is that a fair statement?
But the significance to me of the invocation of the emergency authorities is that under the reorganization plan at that point, the chairman has taken the authorities of the Commission as a whole, and then in an emergency he is able to exercise singularly the authorities of the Commission as a body. So I do see a distinction.
Well, perhaps, Chairman Jasko, could you clear that up? When did you inform them that we were operating under the emergency provisions?
Well, the first action was very early on March 11th at about 9:43 in the morning, I believe. One of my staff members indicated to their staff that we were entering monitoring mode. About 20 minutes later, a formal agency email went out. I then, later that evening, and this is all on the first day, March 11th, sent an email to my colleagues informing them that we were in monitoring mode and talked about our response and what we were doing to the accident. From that point on, we had meetings at least 3 times a day where their staff were briefed by members of the Operations Center about our activities and our status. I held approximately once a day, and starting on March 12th, briefing phone calls with them to describe our actions and indicate what we were doing as an agency to respond to the emergency.
I see my time is expiring. Thank you.
I thank the gentleman. We now go to the Chairman of the Subcommittee, Mr. Jordan, for 5 minutes.
I thank the Chairman. let me start with Mr. Ostendorf. On October 13th, you all sent a letter to the White House Chief of Staff. That seems pretty unprecedented to me, that you would have 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans on a commission send a letter to the Chief of Staff of the White House about the activities of the Chairman of this commission. Do you know if there's any other examples of that happening, other commissions where the same kind of activity or same kind of action was taken, a letter sent to the White House Chief of Staff?
Mr. Jordan, I agree it's an unprecedented action. I'm not aware of any other similar situation.
So you guys knew that this was something that had not been done before. This was pretty unprecedented.
I think the 4 of us were not aware of any circumstance in which a similar action was taken by independent regulatory commission.
And my guess is you had several discussions amongst the 4 of you about taking this unprecedented action. Can you elaborate on that? Was there a time frame where, over a period of months, maybe even longer, where weeks or months or longer, you talked about taking this unprecedented action?
We've had significant concerns for a number of months. And this is in the committee's report, it's in our letter to the White House, concern on withdrawal of the SECI paper back in July, associated with staff recommendations on how the Fukushima report should be evaluated and prioritized by our staff. That paper was withdrawn by the Chairman. That caused significant concern among the 4 of us. We discussed our concerns with the Chairman. We saw attempts to remove the Executive Director for Operations, the EDO, which is a significant personnel step to remove the senior career person in the agency. We saw the October 5th meeting that Commissioner Svinicki referred to, where the Chairman made statements to senior executives in our agency that appeared to undermine the Commission. That was the crossing line, at least from my own standpoint, and I think my colleagues, you can ask them, agreed, and that was what
Safe to say, well thought out, over a period of time, discussed thoroughly, and you said the situation warrants us taking this unprecedented action.
We had seen that our attempts to talk to the Chairman about our concerns on various matters had not yielded any difference in behavior or actions on his part. We felt that as Commissioners we had an obligation to the United States to do this.
And can I go down the line, Commissioner, with each of you? Would you agree with the assessment given by Mr. Ostendorf?
Yes, sir, I would, and I would add that we had engaged, as I said, in protracted efforts to attempt, through our own procedures, to try to resolve some of these issues that had not borne any fruit.
Commissioner Magwood, accurate?
Yes, very accurate.
And Commissioner Apostolakis?
Yes, it is accurate. Okay,
and Mr. Ostendorf, we have a chart here in our material of the 5 commissioners, the professional staff, this chart here with I'm guessing maybe 30 different folks here, and obviously you can't testify for them, but is it fair to say that the staff that's on this page had real concerns about the leadership style of Mr. Jasko? This was part of your assessment and evaluation before you sent the correspondence to the letter to the Chief of Staff.
Mr. Jordan, I can tell you that prior to signing the letter, I think I'll speak for myself, but I think my other 3 colleagues would tell you the same thing, that we had significant feedback from the senior career leadership of the agency expressing great concerns on there being a chilled environment, a lack of an open, collaborative work environment in their interface with the Chairman.
Okay, just one more question for you, and then maybe the same question to the other commissioners. You stated in your testimony that it bothers you that some are alleging that the action that the 4 of you have taken is somehow politically motivated. I think it's certainly a stretch in the fact that it's 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. But I want to ask, do you think the actions of the Chairman have been politically motivated? His style of leadership, what he is doing, do you think those are politically driven?
That's a difficult question, Mr. Jordan. I personally can't tell you that I think his actions are politically motivated. I have no evidence that they are. I will just tell you that we have seen significant issues under his leadership and management that we think are unacceptable.
Commissioner Savnicki? I'm sorry.
I
think I did a better job on the name than the Chairman, but I'm sure I got it wrong too. Go ahead.
I will not testify to political motivations of Chairman Yatsko. I would describe my motivation in signing that letter was more on the basic conduct issues.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Magwood?
Yeah, I think I would answer the question the same way. I would never describe political motivations.
Okay.
My motivation was not political.
I understand that. Do you think the Chairman's was?
I have no evidence that it was. I think it's more his interpretation of his role as a chairman that is driving his actions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We now recognize the ranking member of the subcommittee, Mr. Kucinich, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I want to quote from an article in Politico today on their front page. It says, "Behind closed doors, they snipe at each other. In public, they question each other's motives. And in front of Congress, they hang each other out to dry." That's life on the Federal Election Commission. Not the NRC, but the FEC. I would imagine that if we called up one commission after another in front of this Congress, you'd probably have some complaints that may not be dissimilar than what we have here. The difference is, though, that 104 nuclear power plants in various stages of relicensing, some of which have some questions related to safety, post-Fukushima 7 months ago, March 11, 2011, or May 11, 2011. I'm frankly, wondering why you're here. I mean, I appreciate the Chairman calling this hearing. This is all very interesting.
The gentleman yield?
But I would certainly yield.
Well, I would just make one point that I made in my remarks. The one big difference is I'm sure that you have some of those actions taking place. You cited the FEC. but no commission has taken the unprecedented action of having 4 members sign a letter and send it to the White House Chief of Staff. That's the difference, and that's why the Chairman has called this hearing.
Well, I thank the Chairman for calling the hearing, and I thank my friend for pointing that out. But I also think that it's important for us to look beyond what we see and consider that, we have an industry that's in trouble. Wall Street won't invest in nuclear power. The nuclear industry came to this government and looked for a $60 billion plus loan guarantee. The industry is in trouble. So the commissioners are going to reflect what's going on in the industry. I mean, I would expect that's what's happening here. And that's why we need to look deeper into what we're hearing about the NRC and ask what's going on with the industry. What do the titans of the industry have to say about the Chairman? Now, Mr. Yasko, an Associated Press story reported that you were worried that the U.S. nuclear plant operators may have become complacent following the disaster in Japan. And according to a press account, you said that recent instances of human error and other problems have threatened the safety of some of the nation's nuclear facilities. It was reported, for example, that incidents at nuclear plants in Ohio and Nebraska, quote, almost led to workers getting very, very significant doses, unquote, of radiation. The article also reports, in addition to these events, 3 other plants were shut down for safety reasons. This apparently marks the first time in more than a decade that several plants in the U.S. have been shut down at the same time. Can you elaborate, Mr. Chairman, on some of these specific events and, that have occurred recently, and which ones trouble you the most and why?
Well, Congressman, the events in particular with the potential worker exposures were, in my mind, very significant events because they appear to indicate a lack of adherence to procedures. And after I made those comments, I heard from industry officials, and while they may have not necessarily agreed with my assessment of complacency, they did acknowledge that there is a change in the workforce right now in the nuclear industry. There is new workers, and we are seeing some of these incidents in which the new workers may not have a full appreciation of the procedures and the need for adherence to certain processes that ultimately ensure safety. So it's an important signal. It's not clear yet that we're seeing a true decline in safety, but it's an important signal that we need to make sure we keep a close eye on as the year goes on and as we continue our oversight of these plants.
Is safety your top concern?
Safety has been my #1 priority since I came to the Commission. And
after Fukushima, what went on in your mind about safety in nuclear power plants in this country?
Well, first and foremost, I was proud of the staff at the NRC, that we have worked very hard for a long time to be focused on safety. But that accident, I think, really reminded us that there is no way to rule out accidents. There is no way to prevent ultimately all kinds of serious incidents. So we have to be even more vigilant and dedicated to safety than we've ever been.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My time has expired. I ask unanimous consent to place in the record a staff report called Regulatory Meltdown.
I can only ask whose staff report?
So a staff report by Mr. Markey.
I'll reserve, but only for a very short period of time, because it is another committee's report. If you'll.
Well, I would appreciate your consent.
It'll only take a couple of minutes for staff to review it.
Thank you.
We recognize the gentleman from Utah, a state that gives us uranium, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for holding this meeting. Chairman Yasko, you're undoubtedly aware of the letter that was sent to the White House to the Chief of Staff dated October 13, 2011. There's 5 very serious charges in there. Number 1, intimidating and bullied senior career staff. True or false?
I have not bullied and intimidated career staff.
True or false? Ordered staff to withhold or modify policy information and recommendations intended for transmission to the Commission.
There is one occasion in which I discussed with a very senior manager a recommendation that he wanted to make on an issue, and
so only one time in the history of your time there.
Correct, and I have
next one. True or false? Attempted to intimidate the advisory committee on reactor safeguards. The legislative. Anyway, it goes on. True or false?
False.
true or false, ignored the will of the majority of the Commission contrary to the statutory functions of the Commission?
I have never ignored the will of the majority in an area that is a Commission policy.
I'll take that as a false. True or false, interacted with us, his fellow Commissioners, with such intemperance and disrespect that the Commission no longer functions as effectively as it should?
Well, I'm a very passionate person about safety, and I often engage my colleagues in discussions and about safety, and that's been my style and my practice.
So in other words, they're all wrong and you're exactly right.
I've listened very carefully to the concerns of my colleagues.
And you've done nothing wrong.
I've listened very carefully to the concerns of my colleagues, and I'm certainly very interested in continuing the dialogue with them to better understand how we are not communicating effectively. And in fact, as I believe Mr. Cayley indicated.
Let me continue. My time is short, and I appreciate that, but it doesn't seem like any sort of repentance or concern for this. No, are you telling me that there was an office of the Inspector General did a report dated June 6, 2011, page 44, and I'm extracting a quote out of it, a portion of a sentence, quote, he strategically provided 3 of the 4 Commissioners with varying amounts of information, unquote. Would you disagree with that?
Well, the Inspector General found ultimately that my actions were consistent with the law. They were consistent with Commission policy.
Do you agree or disagree with the Inspector General, who is an independent person, who came in and looked at this and said that you gave people varying amounts of information?
I disagree with that assessment.
Mr. Chairman, I got to tell you, and to my colleagues on the other side, we talk about the safety, the security of this nation, the importance of the nuclear situation in this country. This should be bipartisan. The Commission is bipartisan. We've got people who are suffering under this gentleman right here. He is not living up to the duties. I don't believe you. I think the safety and security of this nation is too important. I think you should resign. I believe in these Commissioners, and God bless you for the job that you're doing and for stepping up and telling it like it is.
Gentleman, you have a question?
I will not. I will not. It is too important to get this right. I find it very hard to believe that the distinguished careers, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, the host of staff that stands behind her, and an Inspector General that goes out and looks at this, and you're telling me they're all wrong and you're right. That, to me, is a lack of leadership, and I hope that there's some sort of change. And if you're going to do the right thing for your country and for this Commission, you should step down. I yield.
Gentleman yield now.
Gentleman yield.
Yes.
I recognize that there could be disagreement on this, but I do have the basic question for you. In light of this accusation, do you believe, Chairman, that you need to make changes in your management and style and how you deal with your Commissioners and how you keep them informed?
Well, certainly, I'm very interested in improving the communication among the 5 of us.
And if you had to do it again, would you have invoked emergency powers without a consultation with this Commission?
All the actions that I took in regard to the 50-mile or the Japan response in general, I'm very comfortable with.
Okay, so you're comfortable with an event on the other side of the world taking away these people's rights to have full and complete access and a vote. You're comfortable doing that without consultation, even though, in fact, it was no direct threat to the United States and they were available? You're comfortable with not consulting with them? Okay, that says it all.
Gentleman yield.
Actually, the time has expired.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, time has expired.
Oh, sure. You ended up.
No, did you finish answering? No, I didn't cut him off.
Well,
if you have further to answer, you're welcome.
I wasn't sure if you were asking me a question or if you wanted a response.
Well, I asked you if you were comfortable, on the gentleman's time, I asked you if you were comfortable with not consulting, and you said you were comfortable with not consulting. You were comfortable with what you did, when in fact it was pretty extraordinary and it was an event on the other side of the world, and these lady and gentlemen were available, and yet they didn't even seem to know that their powers had been usurped so that you could run the show even though you're not a nuclear engineer and several of these people are. So are you still comfortable with that?
Well, I am very comfortable with the actions that we took as an agency, and I did provide tremendous amounts of information to my colleagues, including personally briefing them about the status of our response and the issues that we were looking at. Their staff was fully aware in multiple briefings that they were provided, sometimes up to 4 times a day, on all of the issues that we were looking at. And again, when we're in an emergency situation like this, the authorities are transferred to the chairman in order to assure effective and timely decision making. And the events in Japan, I think, demonstrated that that was the appropriate way to respond.
We now recognize the gentleman from Massachusetts for 5 minutes.
Thank you. And just a comment to my colleague from Utah, who we generally get along pretty well. When there's a minute and 28 seconds left on the clock and somebody's asked you to yield and you deny the yield but give it to somebody in your own party, it doesn't really speak to bipartisanship approach on a hearing like this. And I was going to ask you whether or not you totally disregard the Inspector General's findings and wish us to. So if this is going to be a bipartisan hearing, then I would think we put some weight on the Inspector General's report and conclusions, which are contrary to your recommendation.
Will the gentleman yield? Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, I will yield.
The chairman said he disagreed with the Inspector General. The Inspector General was wrong.
Okay. I thank you. I reclaim my time, and I note that he disagreed with him on one quote of an entire report, but agreed with him quite fully on the conclusions in the final report itself. Look, for what I'm reading in the statute on this, in Section 3, it says, notwithstanding Sections 1 and 2 of this reorganization plan, there are hereby transferred to the chairman all the functions vested in the Commission pertaining to an emergency concerning a particular facility or materials licensed or regulated by the Commission, including the functions of declaring, responding, issuing orders, determining specific policies, advising the civil authorities and the public, directing and coordinating actions relative to such emergency incident.
Would the gentleman yield?
At the end, I will if I have time. In 1980, Congress enacted legislation on this. It said the chairman will be the official spokesman of the Commission. There are hereby transferred to the chairman all those functions that I read. To the maximum extent possible under the emergency conditions, the chairman or other member of the Commission delegated authority under the subsection B shall inform the Commission of actions taken relative to the emergency, and following the conclusion of the emergency, the chairman or a member of the Commission delegated to the emergency functions shall render complete and timely report. Mr. Chairman, did you do those things that the statute set out?
I did, and believe I did much more.
Okay. Now, I'm concerned that what's probably going on in large part here is a disagreement in the interpretation of what powers the chairman has under the statute. That seems to be the underlying fact here, and that's not a new disagreement. I go all the way back to a 1999 report, 1998 report on this. Ambiguity regarding the chairman's role and the commissioner's role continues, and it goes on that basis. It leads to less than harmonious interaction. It seems that members of the Commission always think they have more responsibility. Chair people, particularly new ones, always think they have an enlarged role, and that policy resides with the full Commission and management resides with the chairman. It seems to be the same thing going on here. I look at a report done by our colleague over in the Commerce and Energy Committee, Mr. Markey, and I'm troubled. I'm troubled by the fact that his conclusion in that report draws some very concerning points. He says that after reviewing all of the records that he asked for, voting records, reports, emails, correspondence, memoranda, phone or meeting minutes, or other materials related to the events of Fukushima or the NRC's response to it, he says that 4 NRC commissioners attempted to delay or otherwise impede the creation of the NRC near-term task force on Fukushima. He says that 4 NRC commissioners conspired with each other and with senior NRC staff to delay the release of and alter the NRC near-term task force report on Fukushima. He says that the other NRC commissioners attempted to slow down or otherwise impede the adoption of the safety recommendations made by the NRC near-term task force on Fukushima. He says that NRC Chairman Greg Yasko kept the other 4 NRC commissioners fully informed regarding the Japanese emergency, despite claims to the contrary made by these commissioners. He said that a review of emails and other documents indicates high levels of suspicion and hostility directed at the chairman. And he said the consideration of the Fukushima safety upgrades is not the only safety-related issue that the other NRC commissioners have opposed. That concerns me. It concerns me when 4 members have findings like this by another member on his committee with his staff. and we come in here and sort of bear up on one. It seems we've got a problem with everybody here. People have to work together in some respect. It is unprecedented that a commission would send a letter to the White House Chief of Staff. I'm not sure it's a good precedent to set, as opposed to trying to work things out. Mr. Chairman, do any of those 6 items that I just read, do they seem to you to be accurate?
Well, it has been challenging, I think, to move forward on some of the task force recommendations. And again, I wouldn't want to assign motives or any other ill intention to my colleagues. But I think we have had some challenges.
Did you feel that there was an attempt to slow down the release of that report on Fukushima?
There was definitely an attempt to prevent the release of the report.
So do you think there was an attempt to make things more transparent and to provide to the public and Congress information that was important for them to have?
There was certainly a disagreement on the Commission about providing it transparently to the public. In the end, the majority of the Commission wound up providing the report, but there was a lot of internal disagreement about that on the committee.
I yield to the Chairman.
Now your time's expired. You didn't give me any, and I understand how important your questioning was. With that, we go to the gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Langford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill, thanks for being here. And as others have mentioned before, and Mr. Cummings, this is a tough spot to be able to come to be able to talk about trying to work out functioning conversations, because we have a tough time with it in Congress ourselves. The issue still remains, though, the day-to-day operation of nuclear safety. And the decisions that you make are significant in this. And I want you to know we appreciate the work that you do from day to day, keeping us safe. But this has got to be worked out, as you know well. And it is an unprecedented action to say this could affect safety long term if we don't work this out. And so thanks for coming forward on it. Thanks for working together, and let's try to resolve this. With that, Mr. Magwood, let me ask you a question. You made a statement that safety is the top concern. Tell me your nuclear background. Just a brief statement on it. I have your bio, but make a brief statement about your nuclear background.
Well, most of my nuclear background is in government. I worked at the Department of Energy for 11 years as a political appointee. I was in charge of the nuclear infrastructure associated with the civilian nuclear technology program, which included the Idaho National Laboratory and, I guess, 2,500-odd contractors. I was responsible for overseeing the management of reactor operations.
Okay. In any of those operations, any of those environments, I assume you've got very competent people around you that are all well-studied, all well-researched, and do have disagreements on things. Has something like this occurred in other groups that you've worked with and other places to say we have 4 or 5 colleagues, we disagree, and it breaks out in something like this? So have you seen something like this in the past?
No, I have not seen that.
See, my concern is this is not just a disagreement among colleagues that are all competent on the issue. My concern is this becomes a management conversation to say, how are things led by one individual or another, and how do we come to conclusions? Because, Mr. Jasko, I appreciate your statement saying you're passionate about safety, and that all of these arguments and these disagreements and lack of communication breaks down to the fact that you are passionate about safety. But that definitely alludes to the fact that you're more passionate about safety than everyone else is, and so it just becomes more heated to you or more significant. And my concern is there an impression in your mind that you are more competent and more passionate about safety than the other commissioners?
Well, Congressman, I'm committed.
Are you more competent and more passionate about safety in these areas than the other commissioners?
That's certainly not a judgment that I would make, and but I am passionate about safety, and that's part of what I am.
More so than the others around you? So there's 5 of you, and you look at, you know the meetings that you're in, you look at it and you say, well, they're a little more, they lean other directions besides safety, but I'm more passionate about safety. Is that your concern?
I would leave it to others to judge the various
I'm asking your opinion because it affects your management style.
I treat all of my colleagues as equal members and have
Do you consider yourself more passionate about safety than your colleagues, yes or no?
I'm not sure how I would describe more or less passionate, but I am passionate about safety, and I think that's the best I can tell you.
That's a nice, safe answer. I'm just asking a direct question because it affects, the reason I say that is because if in the back of your mind you're thinking, if this is really going to be done right, I'm going to have to do it because they're not as passionate as I am. Because I'm trying to figure out why some people get some information and some people don't, and why recommendations come from staff and it gets filtered through to try to determine what gets out to different people. Because if you have in the back of your mind, I'm concerned for our nuclear safety, so I need to make sure I filter what gets to them because it may not be right, I just wanted to know, because that does affect your own record. So yes or no, are you more passionate about safety than others, or do you have a concern that some other commissioner is not as passionate about safety as you are?
Well, in regard to the information coming to the Commission, I think if that's the basis for your question, the Commission gets policy matters that come to the Commission for voting. Information is provided as part of those, and I am rarely, if ever, involved in the provision of that information.
Let me ask you a quick question separate from that, and that is also a concern. There's a statement that's been made that you reportedly at one moment said about the two different other Democrat appointees that we Democrats have to stick together on a vote. Was that a statement that you made?
I don't recall making that statement.
Okay. My time is expired.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yes, I would.
Do you have sourcing for that statement?
My time has expired on that one. I would be glad to be able to take other.
Okay, if you'd provide it, I'd appreciate it. Chairman, a piece of administrative business for a moment. The gentleman from Ohio was asked to have a individual member's report from Ed Markey placed in the record. I have no objections. I do have a request that goes with it. In reviewing it, you delivered to an individual member, to Ed Markey, one of your former employers. You delivered him unredacted information and additional information beyond what this committee received through our request. Would you pledge today to deliver us in the same unredacted form everything, I repeat, everything that was responsive to Mr. Markey?
Absolutely. And, Mr. Chairman, I think, as you know, we've provided a large number of documents to you.
I appreciate that, but discovering that he received documents less redacted than we did as an individual member and produced a report, I have no problem with this being placed in the record, but in order to make the record complete, we would need to have the same information, which we do not have today. And quite frankly, we expect normally that what is redacted for good and proper reasons, and there should be no difference whatsoever unless, in fact, a committee demands unredaction, not an individual member. So if you agree to that, I withdraw my reserve, and we now recognize.
I want to thank the Chair for including that in the record, and I agree with him that we should be able to receive this additional information.
I think members on both sides would like to see it. Yes, Chairman.
I would just note that I can only speak for the documents that were in my possession. Some of those other documents may have been provided by other members of the Commission. So I am certainly not aware of any documents that were redacted any differently. But again, I can only speak for those which.
Well, and the good news is that one thing I know about the executive branch is you guys authenticate very carefully what you give to people, so I'm sure we won't have a problem getting the same information. And sometimes people interpret what somebody wants differently than somebody else. In this case, we want everything that Mr. Markey wanted for the same reason of doing our job. With that, we recognize the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Connolly, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to say it is quite a spectacle to have 5 members of the Commission arguing about management style before a committee of Congress. That in and of itself in some ways erodes confidence in the function of the Commission. One does not know who did what to whom and how important it is. The suggestion, obviously, by having a hearing of such prominence has the potential effect of undermining that confidence, and obviously the Chairman of the Commission is the target. I regret that because I think we are at risk, perhaps, of trivializing your mission. The real conversation that ought to be taking place here may be less about management style, though that can be important, and more about mission and how well or poorly historically the NRC has carried out that mission, its cozy relationship with industry, its ability to cogently take lessons learned from tragedies such as Fukushima, its ability to reassure the public of safety and safety standards at nuclear power plants, and its ability to show demonstrably clear independence from the industry it regulates. It is just as viable to posit that what's going on here is that we have a chairman who takes the mission seriously as it is to say we have a chairman who bullies his fellow commissioners and employees. I don't know what the truth is, but I do think this hearing ought to try to get at it. Chairman Jasko, do you see a philosophical difference between yourself and your fellow commissioners with respect to the mission of NRC and how to go about it?
Well, but we do have different approaches to what we believe is safe and how we define safety. And I think that's clear in the different votes that we cast and the positions that we take as commissioners.
Well, specifically hone in on Fukushima. You answered a question about Fukushima just a little while ago to one of my colleagues, and you confirmed that, in fact, there was an attempt by your 4 fellow commissioners to perhaps bury some of the findings of that study and or to aggressively look at lessons learned from the single worst nuclear disaster in world history.
We did have a disagreement.
You did
on the release of.
You did. Is that what you said?
That's correct.
Okay. Go ahead.
About the release of the report and whether or not it should be reviewed by the Commission prior to ever being released publicly.
What was the nature of that dispute?
Well, it was simply that I believe the report, once it was completed, should be made publicly available, and so that the public could see what the views of.
Your commissioners disagreed with that?
There were some who did disagree and wanted the report to be reviewed and perhaps acted on by the Commission and changed before it was released publicly.
On August 23rd, we had a major earthquake here on the East Coast. Surprised everybody, including in my home state of Virginia. We had a close call at the North Anna nuclear power plant as a result of that earthquake, which did generally cosmetic, some minor structural damage up and down the East Coast. But it was a reminder that nuclear power can be vulnerable to seismic activity. That plant was deemed as exceeding its design basis. Could you explain what that means to us, Chairman Jasko, and what was the nature of the concern at the time after the August 23rd earthquake?
Well, when plants are originally built and designed, they pick out the characteristics of an earthquake, and they build all of the structures in the plant to be able to withstand that type of an event. And the earthquake, in fact, was bigger than the earthquake that was hypothesized in the original design of the facility. So there was some shaking of the buildings that was larger than what was originally in the original analysis for the plant.
Potentially compromising safety?
Certainly, it had the potential to compromise safety.
Were there other nuclear power plants in the East Coast that were similarly affected or could have been?
We didn't see any that were directly impacted because that plant was very close to the center of the earthquake. But it was certainly possible that other plants could have experienced effects from the earthquake.
Post-August 23rd earthquake, what action did the NRC take, and was the Commission in agreement or also in disagreement about those actions?
The Commission or the agency really reviewed the safety of the facility. Ultimately, it was a staff decision to determine whether or not the facility should restart. And I was very clear with the staff that they needed to do what they felt was appropriate for safety. And in fact, the Commission held an information briefing because there was interest among my colleagues in hearing and understanding what we were doing. And I think it was a very productive meeting and a strong show, I think, of the Commission working and functioning as a body.
Consensually?
Yes.
My time has expired. I hope we get a chance to explore that some more. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman. I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes question. I'm going to ask the non-chairman commissioners a series of what I hope are quick questions in expectation, hopefully, of an equally quick answer. Ms. Feneke, is the Chairman's behavior affecting your ability to discharge the duties for which you took an oath to discharge?
To this point, I believe that I have had access to what I need to faithfully execute my duties. However, I'm concerned that we're at the point where that is being compromised.
Have you lost confidence in his ability to lead?
Yes, on the basis of his interpersonal conduct, I have.
Commissioner Magwood, same two questions to you. Do you believe his behavior is impacting your ability to do your job, and have you lost confidence in his ability to lead?
It's a very complicated question. It's hard to answer with yes and no. Let me answer it this way. I think that I think that over the time that I've been a commissioner, I've been able to get information that gives me enough confidence to make votes and to make decisions. There have been times when getting the information has been more difficult than I think it should have been. My biggest concern is there always is the chance that there's some piece of information I just didn't even know existed that never got to me. So as far as I know, I've had the ability to make decisions fully informed. I have questions, I have doubts, and I have concerns.
Commissioner Ostendorf.
My concerns with respect to the Chairman's style have been primarily that his interface with our NRC staff has been abrasive. He uses the term passionate. I would say it has prevented staff from feeling comfortable they can bring forth their best views and recommendations to the Commission. From that standpoint, I think that's a grave concern.
Have you lost confidence in his ability to lead?
At this stage, I have, yes.
Commissioner Ospitolakis.
So far, my votes have not been affected adversely by any actions by the Chairman. In fact, in the letter to the Chief of Staff, we said that there may be some harm in the future if this continues. I believe if the Chairman lets the staff send us their true views when various issues come before the Commission, and if he also controls his temper a little bit, he can continue to lead the Commission.
Chairman, there was an apology issued. I don't know whether you drafted it or the White House drafted it. Who drafted your apology?
I prepared a letter that I sent to Mr. Daley. I'm not sure if that's the letter you're referring to.
Have you apologized more than once?
I have indicated to Mr. Daley in that letter that I was sorry for the distraction that this has caused.
Is that the only thing you're sorry for, is the distraction? Do you admit any of the conduct that's been alleged this morning?
If, again, many of these accusations I'm hearing for the first time.
Well, that doesn't impact whether they're true or not. The fact that you haven't heard them yet doesn't mean they're not true. My question is simple. Are they true?
I don't believe that they are true.
What does that mean, I don't believe that they are true? Have you been verbally abusive to female staff?
No, I have not.
Have you withheld information from your fellow commissioners?
I have not.
Have you asked anyone, are they on your team?
I have never said something like that.
Chairman, let me tell you what it looks like from my vantage point, which my background is not in nuclear science. When you have 4 eyewitnesses that testify to something under oath, you know what they call the defendant after that? An inmate. 4 eyewitnesses to the conduct. It is unprecedented to me to have colleagues criticize one another privately. To do it publicly and to have to sit on either side of you to do it before a committee of Congress, to me is unprecedented. None of the allegations they have made are accurate. Is that your testimony?
I believe that many of these instances that they're referring to have been misconstrued, and as I've indicated, that there are issues where I think we can improve our communication.
So what did you apologize for?
I apologize, as I indicated, for
their misunderstanding. Did you apologize because they misunderstood what you did?
I have offered to my colleagues that we sit down with a a third party, someone that we all could agree on to
We really
talk
need
about these
a
issues.
counselor for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission? We need a counselor for that?
I'm very interested in improving the communication because I think it's
Does
vital.
it matter to you that the four of them either have or are rapidly losing confidence in your leadership? Does that matter to you?
That's very important to me, and it's something that I'm very interested in working on.
But you deny the allegations that they testified to under oath.
Congressman, I believe I've answered this question.
Well, do it again for me. You deny them?
As I said, I believe I've answered this question very, very well to the best of my ability here.
Would recognize the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Davis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to yield 30 seconds to my colleague from Ohio, Mr. Kucinich.
With all due respect to my good friend in the chair, these allegations are not allegations of criminal misconduct or anything like that. They're allegations that he doesn't get along with his commissioners. That's not a basis for either imprisonment or for having the chairman resign. So I think that we have to put this in perspective and continue to insist that the commission focus on safety. And I want to take this opportunity to wish all of the members of the commission a Happy New Year.
Claiming my time. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me first of all thank the witnesses for appearing. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. In July, the Union of Concerned Scientists issued a report titled U.S. Nuclear Power After Fukushima, Common Sense Recommendations for Safety and Security. This report includes recommendations for changes the NRC should make to improve the safety and security of U.S. nuclear plants. One recommendation made by UCS was that NRC regulations should be extended to cover severe accidents. This is what the UCS report says. The NRC defines severe accidents as those more serious than the so-called design basis accidents that U.S. reactors are designed to withstand. While unlikely severe accidents can occur, as in Fukushima, and cause substantial damage to the reactor core and failure of the containment building, leading to large releases of radiation. For example, the agency does not evaluate or test the severe accident management guidelines that reactor owners have voluntarily developed. So neither the NRC nor the public can be confident these guidelines would be effective. Mr. Chairman, I understand that there has to be a reasonable limit on what licenses are required to do, and that every plant can't be fully prepared for every imaginable worst-case scenario. However, Fukushima should provide a wake-up call that severe accidents can and do happen. The Gulf oil spill is a prime example. That was the worst-case scenario. Industry wasn't prepared, and it resulted in the worst environmental disaster in our nation's history. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, it's a very
Would the gentleman suspend for just a moment? We'll stop the clock. We're going to have a minority hearing in a few moments because that's a right. And I want to make sure that everyone understands I've been very tolerant, but this hearing is not on nuclear safety. And we are not a committee with nuclear safety as a direct oversight. This is on the leadership of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And although I will allow anything you want to do with your 5 minutes, I've always been very understanding. I would caution all members on both sides of the aisle that this is about a concern that has been legitimately raised all the way to the White House, that the committee believes is well within our unique jurisdiction as the Oversight Committee. We're not the Energy and Commerce Committee. We're not some of the Science Committee and so on. So the gentleman can continue. The Chairman can answer. But if we're going to make this about nuclear safety, then we've essentially hijacked a legitimate issue, and anyone who does it, shame on you.
Mr. Chairman,
Ranking Member.
Just clarification. I didn't hear the question that the gentleman asked, but part of this hearing goes to safety and whether this commission can function and carry out its safety responsibilities. As a matter of fact, there has been the majority report that came out talked about a catastrophe, and I use that word because it's what was said at the commission, and that they would not be able to function properly. So I don't know whether that question goes to safety and whether or not they are able to carry out their responsibilities.
Well, and I thank the ranking member. I was cautioning members because Mr. Davis probably was the best example of, I know he was well-intentioned, but nothing in his comment and nothing in his question seemed to go to the management and the questions of the management capability to manage. Hold on. The fact is, I respect every member of this committee. I have always said, and I wasn't that way when we were in the minority in a couple of cases. Mr. McHenry vividly remembers being shut up because he was, quote, off subject. Use your 5 minutes any way you want, but I would caution members that, in fact, our jurisdiction, our legitimate jurisdiction, is not over directly second-guessing safety, but, in fact, our oversight of the entire Federal workforce, all commissions, all agencies. And so I only would ask that we do as much as we can to recognize that if there's an additional hearing and if we legitimately can hold a hearing on the safety of our nuclear facilities more broadly, that's a legitimate hearing to ask for. This hearing was very narrow, and it had to do exactly with why these 5 commissioners are here today. The ranking member.
Just briefly, there's 2 points I want to make briefly. First of all, thank you for holding this hearing. I think it's important at this time and place that we have the hearing. And the second thing that relates to Mr. Davis's concerns, if, for example, the industry is upset with this chairman, and they would go through the members of the commission to try to get it to chairman, the industry might be upset because they're concerned of pressure on safety. This is just a hypothetical. So I think that there might be a connection here.
And Mr. Kucinich, I completely agree with you that if in fact the line of questioning goes toward, quite frankly, the intent and the reason behind 2 Democratic and 2 Republican appointees somehow making an objection that is not based on the failure of or the allegation of mismanagement or particularly of outburst and erratic behavior, you're absolutely right. Those kinds of questions certainly fall within the question of management at Nuclear Regulatory Commission and would be in order. And, Mr. Davis, I apologize if you want to take additional time to restate your question.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for the manner in which you've conducted this hearing. I appreciate it, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you. Mr. Davis.
It's difficult for me to understand in any way, shape, form, or fashion, and quite frankly, we haven't gotten to my question yet. It's coming in a second. The mission of the regulatory agency is very important to me, the mission and the outcomes of the decisions that are made. No matter how much you may disagree or bicker, I have difficulty with management style and with personality differences. In the end, the bottom line is, do we make the best and most effective decisions for the people of this country and other environments that are impacted and affected by those decisions? And so, Mr. Chairman, my question is, do you feel that the interaction between yourself and other commissioners have had any negative impact relative to decisions that the commission has made?
Well, no, I don't think it has. I think certainly I want to work to improve the communication. But, for example, since this letter was worked on, the Commission has held 9 meetings where we've gotten together and been briefed on a variety of different issues. We have held one of our significant hearings related to new reactor licensing. We have held 3 of our formal voting type sessions where we formalize legal opinions of the Commission. And as I said yesterday, we held a meeting on a very important safety issue related to fire protection. The Commission has also held at least 2 agenda sessions, which I have held routinely every month, and that was in particular one of the suggestions and recommendations from that 1999 Inspector General report, that the Commission have regular sessions to talk about agenda, and that's something I've instituted.
So your answer is no. Let me just, Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, could I ask if the other Commissioners would just respond quickly to that?
I'd ask unanimous consent for an additional 30 seconds for the gentleman. Without objection, continue.
The decisions have not been affected by the management issues that we have raised. I believe all the decisions have been made having in mind the safety and the adequate protection of the American public. And I am personally very offended by the suggestion that I am an instrument of the industry in its efforts to overthrow the Chairman.
I agree with Commissioner Apostolakis. I'm also offended by the implication of Mr. Kucinich's statement. I assure this committee.
I want to respond.
Please continue, sir.
With respect to Mr. Davis's statement, I could not more wholeheartedly agree with your emphasis on nuclear safety. I agree with my colleague, Commissioner Apostolakis, that we have done our very best and we are making good decisions. That said, we are still operating under a very difficult environment that does not give me confidence that our staff feels free to bring us the best information uninfluenced.
Thank you. Yes.
Point of personal privilege.
The gentleman, suspend, continue. The gentleman is trying to get answers from each of the commissions, and I'd like to have that in order first.
I agree with my colleagues. I think that we've been able to continue the people's business very well under the circumstances. I think the senior staff has managed to keep the agency focused during whatever conflicts have been occurring. The staff of the NRC has been focused on their mission and safety. I believe that the agency is functioning at the bottom line, protecting health and safety as well as it ever has. That doesn't mean it's been easy.
Thank you. Yes.
I agree with Commissioner Magwood's response.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate it.
Would you yield to the gentleman from Ohio for a few seconds?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Ostendorf, I didn't call your name. I gave a hypothetical about the potential influence of the industry on members of the Commission. But since you objected to that, I find that very instructive. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The gentleman's time has expired.
I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. We now go to the gentleman from Michigan. Wait a second. Oh, I'm sorry. I now go to the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Ross.
Thank you.
The Republican on the Democratic side, Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Magwood, I'm very impressed with your experience not only in the nuclear industry but also as an administrator. And I read your testimony, opening testimony, and you talk about some incidents involving some abusive behavior with female employees that you had encountered. In fact, I think you indicated that nevertheless, I found their misogynistic behavior entirely unacceptable and personally offensive, and you immediately let these supervisors go. That behavior, that those people that you let go, does that compare in any way to the behavior expressed by Chairman Yasko?
It was similar in the fact that it was verbal abuse. It involved screaming and just a lot of pointed language that the women involved found very, very emotionally straining.
And when you let go in your previous situation, when you let those supervisors go that were being the abusers, that changed, didn't it? It improved the situation?
Well, let me emphasize, it was within the Federal Government, so I didn't really have the ability to simply fire these people. I would have liked to have fired them.
But you eliminated the
absolutely.
the distraction.
I immediately, the very day I found out, they were removed from their supervisory responsibilities and geographically relocated.
And do you believe that removing Chairman Yasko may be able to be appropriate to protect any further abuse to female members of the NRC?
I suspect that a question like that might come up. I've decided just to simply present the facts as I understand them and let others make that decision. It's not within my power to appoint or remove a chairman, but I think that this is information that people.
But it rose to the level of abuse that you had seen in the past.
It was very similar. The stories I heard were very similar to what I heard in the past.
And removing that abuse corrected the problem?
Yes, it did.
Okay, and that has been your experience. Ms. Savinsky, you talked about a lack of confidence. Do you feel there's any way to repair the confidence in this chairman?
If the conduct were to be completely changed, there is always the potential to rehabilitate relationships.
Commissioner Ostendorf, how do you feel? Do you feel that your lack of confidence at this point is reparable, or do you feel that it's just lost?
I have to agree. Sorry. I have to agree with Commissioner Savinsky that it's been severely damaged, and once there's an erosion of trust, it's extraordinarily difficult to regain that trust. I'm not going to say it's going to be impossible or would be impossible, but it would be extraordinarily difficult to regain.
Thank you. And Chairman, I can't help but sit here and think back as a kid watching the movie The Caine Mutiny with Humphrey Bogart, and him being put on trial and by his crew members in a very serious situation. So I mean, it begs the question, Chairman Yasko, how's the voyage been so far? We're at a point now where you've made an apology, and specifically what I'm asking is, what did you apologize for?
Well, as I've indicated in a letter to Mr. Daley, I apologize for the distraction, and I look forward to discussions with my colleagues about ways that we can further enhance and improve our communication and trust.
And one of those suggestions is that you have a third party, I would assume a facilitator, to try to reopen lines of communications with your fellow commissioners. My concern is that if the issue becomes more of maintaining your position as opposed to restoring the integrity of the NRC, what is your course of action? Are you considering a resignation?
I have no plans to resign.
Okay. Even if it means more to focus on keeping your job than to restoring the NRC?
I have no plans to resign because I continue to believe that under my leadership, the agency has performed very well. We have committed ourselves to safety, and I believe my record shows that.
But it's unprecedented where we are today, when you have the 4 commissioners who have made these allegations. And as a student of management myself, I can only suggest to you that management by intimidation may have some short-term goals, but some long-term effects that are very adverse. Management by motivation is probably the only way you can restore the integrity of this organization. And so I implore you, I beg of you, if it is your position you seek to keep, then it is the integrity of this organization that must be foremost. And it must be done so through not only a facilitator, if that's what you believe, but more importantly, through motivating these people to be the best that they've been able to be. For what is at stake here is not only the 4,000 employees, but the nuclear safety of this entire country. I yield back.
Would the gentleman yield?
I'll yield.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, wouldn't you agree that what's going on here today and what's been going on for months now clearly hurts your ability to recruit, retain many of those 4,000 people and to motivate them to do their best job?
Well, I have not seen any drop-off in any of those areas.
Okay, so none of this has any effect on 4,000 people?
As I've indicated, I think it's unfortunate that we have this distraction, but the men and women at the NRC are professionals, and they'll continue to do their jobs effectively.
Okay. We now go to the gentleman. Mr. Welsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for calling the hearing. A couple of points. Number one, I regret, obviously, that we're here. This is not a personnel committee, and it is regrettable that there is this conflict at the senior level of the commissioners. Number two, I don't think that Congress is the place to go to resolve this. Number three, I assume that each one of the members of the commission is professional and makes decisions based on each of your own independent best judgment. The obstacles and the challenges that you face, professional and personal, notwithstanding. And I think we all owe you that debt of gratitude. The concerns I have are less about trying to resolve something that I don't believe it's within the capacity of a congressional committee to resolve. It has to do with the safety and the focus on safety. And I say that as a representative from the State of Vermont, where we've had an ongoing and somewhat contentious situation involving our local nuclear reactor. When things like a cooling tower fall down and the reaction on the part of the company that runs it is that it's not really a big deal, that doesn't provide great assurance to the people of Vermont. When there is discovered leaking underground reactive material in the response of the nuclear power company, is that they don't have underground pipes. And it turns out, in fact, they do have underground pipes. That causes significant concern about Vermonters. There's litigation now, and we understand that this body voted on between the State of Vermont and Entergy about its future, and we understand that the Commission voted by a 3-2 margin to come in as a friend on the side of Entergy against this litigation. That causes us some concern. So safety is my concern, and I know that safety is your concern, but I just have a few questions. It caused me some concern about how active and aggressive the Commission is on coming to a conclusion about some safety standards. The most recent NRC fire protection standards were promulgated in 2004. Earlier standards that applied had not been met for 25 years. And as I understand it, currently 47 nuclear power plants are still not in compliance, and they're requesting yet another 12-year delay. And my understanding is the Commission is basically accommodating a 12-year delay on top of a 25-year delay. Commissioner Apostolakis, I hope I pronounced your name right. Could you address that?
Yes. The reason why the new regulation was promulgated in the 2000s is that because of the large number of exemptions requests for exemptions that we received regarding the earlier rule, we decided, or the staff decided, that this was not working very well. But I would like to point out, when we say 47 plants or units do not comply, they have implemented compensatory measures. They don't comply with some provisions of the original rule, but they have done something else to meet the intent of the rule. Okay. So it's not that they are unsafe or anything. And this new rule now, yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I only have a few minutes, but I appreciate your response. But I guess what I'll have to do, because I can't really ask a lot of questions, is express to each of you the concern we have about what appears to be a very slow turnaround on the implementation of safety standards. And you know full well that if you're living in the shadow of a nuclear plant, the closer you are, the more anxious you are. But we have examples, and this is what's so profoundly important about the safety focus, is that if something can go wrong, even when we think it won't, it probably at some point will go wrong. And that's what we saw in Japan. And if something goes wrong, the consequences of an event are so catastrophic, and I'm preaching to the choir here, I know, but I'm doing it because this is the anxiety that we live with in Vermont. And when we have a nuclear power plant where the cooling tower collapses and we're told not to worry about it, it's hard to be comfortable. And when there is leaking pipes and we're told there are no pipes, and upon investigation there is, we really need to see a sense of urgency and in some cases some penalties associated with wrong information being provided and failure to comply with safety standards. Because some of these things that happen in the beginning that fortunately don't cause harm give you some apprehension that an event will occur that does cause harm. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We now go to the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Walberg, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the panel for being here. This is truly not a hearing that I ever expected to be a part of as a member of Congress, and certainly not with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. But I think it's a hearing that apparently is very well positioned and important to have. When I read through the letter that was sent to Chief of Staff Daley, and I read bullet points in that letter, and I'd like any commissioners that would be willing to comment to a question I'll have from this, where it says that the Chairman intimidated and bullied senior career staff, that he interacted with us, his fellow commissioners, with such intemperance and disrespect that the Commission no longer functions as effectively as it should. That's strong language in a letter, an unprecedented letter that has been sent to this administration. And I would surmise that if this administration, from this hearing, understands the gravity of this situation and how that, with no pun intended, this could blow up still further to a regulatory agency of an amazing importance to us. That strong language is telling. Can you, any of the commissioners, explain to me why this language was included with specific illustrations? I don't want to pick on a University of Michigan grad, but Commissioner Svinke, why was the language included, and what are some of the key illustrations that you'd give for its importance?
I would state that I realize the significance of putting my hand to that language. I did not do so lightly. I would characterize that I did it very reluctantly, and candidly, I would state, realizing that ultimately it could bring us to the kind of event that we're holding this morning. And I regret that, but that language, at that time I supported that. I was comfortable and in support of it, but realized the significance of my action.
Any significant illustrations of what you put in that language, examples?
I think a number of the events have already been testified to this morning regarding interactions between the Chairman and the professional staff of the agency. There also have been very tense interactions and meetings between the Chairman and the members, other members of the Commission. And again, I think people can be passionate about issues without fundamentally the kind of conduct that I've observed.
Any other commissioners' response to that?
Yes, sir. I'll comment specifically that senior staff has complained to me personally about the Chairman taking an approach that led them to believe that they were not in a free environment to bring forth their best views with respect to how SECI paper 110093, the near-term task force report from Japan, where there is a paper that was acknowledged to have been withdrawn back in July. There's also staff complaining to me about how the Chairman's office and Chairman responded to their content of the 21-day report with respect to the short-term actions to be taken as a result of Fukushima.
So this goes to safety.
Those two reports dealt with how the Commission would take actions in response to the Fukushima event.
Any other commissioner response to that? Mr. Chairman, I want to yield to you sometime, but I do have one final question. So I would be glad to yield at this if you will then allow me to finish with one.
I'll be very brief. For each of the commissioners, do you believe that employees, professional staff of the NRC have experienced intimidation, hostile or offensive conduct on behalf of by the Chairman? Anything that would be considered to be intimidating, hostile, or offensive by the Chairman? Any professional staff experience that?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the definition of harassment. I hope that we can all agree that that's why we put it into statute. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Recently, Dale Klein, former Commissioner and colleague, suggested that the Chairman does not need to be removed from the panel, but could instead be demoted by the President, and a new Chairman be chosen from among the existing members. Would anyone on the panel like to comment on this potential solution?
I don't think you're going to get someone that wants to say they want to be Chairman here today. I ask unanimous consent the gentleman have an additional 30 seconds.
Well, I guess that's my point, Mr. Chairman. I probably didn't expect someone to answer and say, yeah, I'd like to be the Chairman, or I'll appoint that, I'll suggest someone. But I think this certainly indicates a very significant problem with this Commission being able to function together for the best interests of this country, the citizens it serves, the regulatory responsibility they have, and that indeed, if this is the problem, to this extent, and the Administration is willing to let it go on, we in America have concerns beyond simple management styles, but the function of this regulatory agency and the responsibility to the American people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
I thank the gentleman. If the gentleman would like to respond.
Could I make a comment, please? I appreciate the opportunity. My colleague mentioned a meeting or a phone conversation I had on the development of this so-called 21-day paper. I believe the committee has an audio recording of that conversation, and I'm certainly comfortable with that audio being made publicly available. I believe it characterizes my passion and demonstrates my commitment to open discussions among members of the staff, and my strong interest in them providing me with their candid views, so that, if nothing else, I can ensure that the Commission is informed with the information it needs.
I thank the gentleman. Can I get a nodding of heads by all the Commissioners that the release of audio that has been recorded can be made available to the committee? Hearing no objections, I'll assume they'll be delivered to us. With that, we recognize the gentleman from Idaho, Mr. Labrador, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I especially want to welcome Mr. Magwood, Commissioner Magwood, who worked diligently at Idaho National Laboratory, and I believe Commissioner Svinicki's worked for one of our senators. So thank you for being here. This has been truly one of the most frustrating hearings I've ever participated in, because I've never seen such self-deluded behavior by any individual in probably my entire life. The lack of awareness of what's happening here in the Commission is truly astounding to me. To watch an individual just sit here and say that the only thing he is responsible for and he's sorry about is the distraction that has been caused by your behavior is truly just embarrassing, just to watch you this entire time that I have been here. So let's really just get down to what's happening here. You believe, and you did not answer this question when my good colleague over here asked you the question, but you believe that you are more passionate than the other 4 individuals sitting here about nuclear safety. Is that not true?
Well, I
just answer the question, yes or no. You can say yes, you can say no. Are you more passionate, are you less passionate, or are you equally passionate? It's a simple question.
My voting record, I think, shows that I have taken positions on safety.
So you're more passionate. Is that what you believe?
I would say my position.
And you also believe that you have better judgment than these 4 individuals. Is that not true?
I believe that I have taken.
Yes or no? Simple question.
I believe I have very good judgment as a safety.
And your judgment is better than the 4 individuals here combined. Isn't that true, according to your own opinion?
It's up to others to determine.
No, it's up to you, because you're the one who's making the decisions that is making their life a living hell. So you tell me, do you have more passion? Do you have better judgment? Yes or no?
I feel very strongly that I have an appropriate judgment and
So you have better judgment than the other 4 individuals that are sitting here, correct? According to you.
Congressman, as I said many times, I'm not.
Okay, you're not going to answer the question when it's clearly from your statements, from your actions, that you believe that your judgment and your passion surpasses the 4 of them combined. So your distraction that is being caused, it's interesting to me. I have managed an organization. I had a law firm for a while. Now I have to manage my congressional office. Your management style is bringing some problems that are being brought here to the fore, and you're saying that you're willing to work with them, but you're not willing to admit that you have done anything wrong. That's what I cannot understand. The only way you're going to be able to work with these individuals and actually change your management style is by admitting that you actually screwed up, that you actually did something wrong. Are you not willing to admit that there's something in your management style that has brought us to a congressional hearing that is unprecedented in American history?
Well, Congressman, I take
Yes or no?
responsibility for this agency, and as I've indicated, I'm willing to discuss these issues with my colleagues and figure out how we can better communicate.
But you haven't done anything wrong. What are you going to discuss? That they're wrong and you're right, correct?
I would like to discuss these communication issues and some of the misunderstandings.
Have you done anything wrong in your management of this agency?
Congressman, as I said, I take full responsibility.
For what?
For this organization. And
no, for what in your behavior are you taking responsibility for? Just name one thing, just one thing that you admit that you have done wrong, because I don't believe that these 4 individuals would come here if you haven't done a single thing wrong. Just name one thing that you have done wrong.
Well, Congressman, as I said, I'm very passionate about safety, and
so it's wrong for you to be passionate about safety. Is that what you're telling the American people right now?
Congressman,
is that wrong to be passionate about safety? And they're not passionate about safety, right?
Congressman, as I said, I'm very passionate about safety, and if that's ever been misconstrued by my colleagues, that's something I'd like to discuss.
So what in your passion, in your passionate statements was wrong that would bring us to a moment that we have to have these 4 individuals, these 4 commissioners who have dedicated their entire life to the public safety of our nation? What in your behavior is wrong? Just name one thing. That's all I'm asking. I can name 20 things that I have done wrong in my life if somebody asks me the question. You can't name one thing.
Well, Congressman, as indicated, it's a conversation I think I'd like to have with my colleagues to better understand their concerns.
It's ridiculous. Your answers today have been totally ridiculous, because there's no way that these individuals who have the same passion, the same commitment to the safety of the United States would be sitting here complaining about you, complaining about the staff, unless you had done something wrong. And it's absolutely ridiculous for us to think that under any circumstance you're going to change your behavior because you're not even willing to admit that you did one thing wrong. That's just incredulous to anybody who's watching this meeting. Mr. Chairman, I have run out of time.
I thank the gentleman. We now go to the gentleman from New Hampshire, Mr. Ginta, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple of quick questions. For anyone on the panel other than the Chairman, can anybody talk to me about the first IG report and what conclusions it made relative to this issue?
Sir, I'll attempt just broadly. The NRC Inspector General has testified, I believe, before the House Energy and Commerce Committee earlier this year on the content and conclusions of his report. That report focused, it covered a number of issues, but it spent much of its content on the decision-making around the Yucca Mountain-related activities at NRC. There were some other more broad findings about the relationship on the Commission, and I'd like to reacquaint myself with those findings rather than testify to them generally.
To the Chairman, I see a letter here dated December 12th from the President's Chief of Staff, and it's issued to Chairman Issa, and in it, it says, the 4th paragraph down, he has indicated his intention to reach out to his fellow Commission colleagues for that purpose. He's referring to you. And on the back of the letter, he talks about the development of any recommendations to improve the circumstance. So it sounds like what he's saying here is that the President's not going to take action, that he'd prefer these issues be resolved by you and the Commission. Is that your understanding of?
Well, I don't want to speak for certainly for the administration, but as I read the letter, what I saw was that the Chief of Staff would be looking at the situation and would be looking to an Inspector General report to get some guidance on ways to improve the organization.
Would you agree with the assessment in this letter that the disagreements amongst the Commission are over policy matters?
Well, I certainly think we have policy disagreements, but there are also, I believe, organizational miscommunications and misunderstandings about roles and responsibilities.
Well, to me it appears that the IG's report has really not improved things. As a matter of fact, from what I've read and heard, you can make an argument that things have further deteriorated. So I appreciate your interest in wanting to work with your colleagues, but it seems like that point has come and gone. And as stated by other members of this committee, I think there is growing frustration that we're at this level of inquiry. So I would prefer that this be handled in one of two ways, but have you yourself, you say you would take full responsibility for actions of the committee. Would you consider stepping down as Chairman?
I have no intention to resign.
Okay. I would yield back the remainder of my time.
The gentleman would yield. Thank you. I think it's clear the Chairman is making no apologies for misconduct, only for the lack of harmonious life among the five of you. I asked the Chairman who his Board of Directors is. I asked him about collaborative and normally consensus-type activity for each of the Commissioners. When the Chairman was not the Chairman, do any of you believe that he would have accepted one of you treating him the way he is now treating you? No?
I believe I'm the only member of the Commission who served with Chairman Yatsko when he was then a Commissioner. We were both Commissioners when I began my service on the Commission. And I would characterize that I actually, when I was new to the Commission, found very helpful that he tutored me in many of the ways of insisting upon the role of individual Commissioners, that they have an important contribution to make.
So when he was a Commissioner,
that I learned many of those points from him.
So when he was a Commissioner, life was collaborative. He got it. He was a former staffer to House and Senate people. He kind of got the idea that you all had to work together and reach at least a 3-2 vote and hopefully a 4-1 or a 5-0 whenever possible. So this is a very capable Commissioner, just not a good Chairman in your opinion, a terrible Chairman in your opinion.
I would characterize that during that period, it really was limited to policy differences at times and not the differences we see now.
Okay, I'd ask unanimous consent for just 30 more seconds for a single question, because one half of it's been asked repeatedly. For each of the Commissioners, now I'm not looking at you as Republicans or Democrats, even Democratic members, because as far as I can tell, none of you are partisans in your background, certainly career Navy officers and so on. So you've been accused, sort of being lapdogs for industry, not caring enough about safety. It's been some insinuation that that could be the case. Would each of you just briefly tell me about your view, your passion about safety and how that brings you to each of your votes when you're given an opportunity, please?
My sole motivation in serving on the NRC is to work on issues of advanced nuclear safety and security for the country. I have many family members in Wisconsin and Michigan that live near to nuclear power plants, and so I'm concerned for all Americans and think and am motivated even by my own family and their protection and safety.
Commissioner Magwood.
Mr. Chairman, as someone who spent really my entire professional career working in the nuclear field, I have a very deep appreciation for the hazards presented by handling of nuclear materials. I've overseen it for many years at DOE, and as a result, I view any nuclear activity as a matter of great responsibility. And I think that anyone who is involved in that activity should be held to a very, very, very high standard, and I expect the best of everyone involved. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a record going back to 1976 of being involved in nuclear power issues, nuclear weapons issues. I assure you that having operated and trained others to operate, supervise, and maintain nuclear power plants on submarines, that I have a very rigid sense of safety and am very concerned on safety issues. And I welcome anybody to examine and discuss my voting record with me on safety issues at the NRC.
Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, I have spent my entire professional career working on nuclear safety issues, and I was elected to the National Academy of Engineering on the basis of my contributions.
And I'm going to yield the same amount of time to the ranking member as I'm going over, so I'm going to be very brief. Commissioner Ostendorf, as a former Navy officer, from your experience, not just within your commands, but within your military service, which was much longer than mine, don't you have countless examples you've seen of fine officers who were competent, technically capable, who were relieved because, in fact, they exhibited behavior that lost the confidence of the men and women that worked for them?
Yes.
Thank you. Yield to the ranking member.
You know, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to all of this, and I swear to God, it just is incredible to me. We're better than this. And, you know, I feel like I'm sitting here trying to referee a fight. And I said from the beginning, I'm not a referee. I haven't done that since my kids were tiny and now they're adults. Chairman Jacko, let me tell you, I do appreciate the fact that you're willing to sit down with your colleagues. I don't want you to quit. I do not want you to quit. I want you to continue to fight for the American people and do what's right for them. And I don't think your passion and your commitment and your expertise is any greater than the other commissioners. I think all of you are very wonderful, strong Americans, very committed to our safety, and I believe that you're giving everything you've got to make things work. But we got to do better than this. There is no reason, I think, why this should have risen to this level. And Commissioner, I know people have been trying to get you to admit that you did things wrong, and I would imagine that people up here would have a difficulty admitting that they were wrong when they've got opinions saying they operated within the law and what have you. I don't know what they would say, to be frank with you. But I do know one thing, that, I mean, after 61 years on this earth, I've come to realize something that's very significant. One of the best ways not to achieve a goal is to be distracted. I mean, if you look at people who have not achieved the things that they tried to achieve in life, a lot of times it's because they got distracted. I have not come to ask you, all 5 of you, I've come to beg you to work this thing out. I mean, to sit down like reasonable people and work it out. The American people are tired of dysfunction. They're really tired of us. And what you all are doing is so very, very important. And, I listen to everybody, and Commissioner Apatopoulos, I'm getting there.
When you get to know him better, his name's George.
I heard what you said, and I think you summarized it better than anybody else. When asked about whether you had lost confidence that this commissioner, the head, Mr. Jacko, could do the job, you said, I think he can do it, but he's got to change his attitude a little bit. Is that pretty much? I don't want to take words out of your mouth. That's pretty much what you said. Is that right? Come on, talk to me.
That's a summary of what I said.
No, say it. Tell me. I don't want to misstate you.
He should control his temper.
Yes.
Let the staff send us their frank views.
Stop doing what?
Frank views, opinions, the staff. The staff should communicate to the commissioners their candid opinions.
Yeah. I mean, can you live with that? Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I keep thinking, you guys got to go back. All the press. You see all the press people? They're loaded up over there. They're typing away. Look at them. You know why? Because they like controversy. They want to make, they're tweeting and twitting and doing all kinds of things right now. So that, and then now you all have been elevated, all of you now, everybody knows your names. But I'm telling you, when all of this is over, you got to go back. The president's not going to get rid of you. You're doing a great job. May not, the attitude, I think you need to change some of these attitudinal things that you're dealing with, but you got to do that. And so I beg you, for the sake of the American people, please sit down, work this thing out. Share the information with your fellow commissioners. Do what you got to do, but make it work. And that's all I have to say.
I thank the ranking member. As I close the first panel, I would like to make it very clear that if this does not get resolved, this is not the last time that this committee will come to a full committee hearing to review the status of management at the NRC. Additionally, we are the Personnel Committee of the Congress to a great extent. We do look at the management structure. We do so like a board of directors. It is not ours to tell you what to do. It is ours to find out whether it's being done as is prescribed by law and as the executive branch has said they want to do. We will retain continuing jurisdiction. We will expect all of the promises made here today of material to be added to our discovery. We will, in fact, also remind everyone we're the whistleblower committee. People come to us on our lines, on the Internet, by the hundreds per week. Those people expect that if they give us information, there will be no retaliation within any agency of government. We will strictly enforce and protect anyone who comes before this committee at any time. And I know in the opening statement that was mentioned, people who come before us come protected from the moment they come to tell us something. The only time they're not protected is if they're not telling the truth, to use a double negative. We will continue to look. We will not tolerate harassment. We will not tolerate retribution. Now, the ranking member said it more eloquently than I could. We want you to resolve this. It is not the kind of thing that comes before Congress, and it is not particularly good other than fodder for the press. So as we continue to retain jurisdiction and oversight, bear in mind we will be looking at every action of all of you. We want you to do everything you can to live up to your oaths. And, Chairman, I would hope that as you work with Chief of Staff Daley, that you recognize that this is an extraordinary opportunity, if the President retains confidence in you, to change dramatically how these 4 men and women believe you are working. And I think certainly at least one commissioner has said very well that he believes that change can happen, and the others to a certain extent did too. We're not your CEO. We are ultimately the American Stockholders Board of Directors, and we will assert our rights and obligations if we do not see this resolved. And that will be something that I'm positive will come from both sides of the aisle. So I thank you. We are going to break briefly for a second panel. We thank you for your testimony, and we stand in recess. If I could ask you to please take your seats. Committee will come to order. I'd now like to recognize our second panel of witnesses. Mr. William Bouchard is Executive Director of Operations at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and Mr. Stephen Burns is General Counsel for the NRC. Gentlemen, I know you've been sitting through the first panel, so pursuant to our rules, would you please rise to take the oath? Do you solemnly swear that, or affirm that the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Let the record indicate both answered in the affirmative. And Mr. Bouchard, is that correct pronunciation?
Yes, sir.
One of my best friends is Bob Bouchard, formerly of New York Racketon Company, so it's the only reason I didn't mess your name up. You're recognized to give your opening statement.
Thank you very much, Chairman Issa. Good afternoon. As you mentioned, my name is Bill Bouchard. I've served as the Executive Director for Operations at the NRC since May of 2008. I began my NRC career in 1983 after serving 5 years in the U.S. Submarine Force. As the Executive Director for Operations, I am the senior staff member responsible for the operational and administrative functions necessary for the day-to-day operations of the agency. This includes supervising and coordinating agency operational activities, policy proposal development, and implementation of Commission policy directives. Approximately 3,500 of the 4,000 staff members of the NRC report through the EDO. The staff of the NRC is fully committed to the agency's mission to protect public health and safety, as well as protection of the environment. This is a 24/7 responsibility. Accomplishment of this mission requires the dedicated and interdependent efforts of every employee. For more than 35 years, NRC experts have had a singular focus on our safety and security mission. We strive to be tough but fair and reliable regulators, and to be an organization that continues to learn from experience. Learning from operating experience has frequently resulted in the imposition of new regulatory requirements and corresponding safety improvements at the facilities we regulate, as well as improvements to our own operations. The events at Fukushima are providing to us today a new opportunity to learn from operating experience and to improve our regulatory structure. Our safety and security mission has been and will always remain our top priority. In addition to a clear mission, I believe that any organization involved in nuclear safety, especially the safety regulator, must have a robust safety culture. The NRC staff safety culture embodies the principles of an open and collaborative work environment, the agency's principles of good regulation, which are independence, openness, efficiency, clarity, and reliability, and a commitment to live by a set of organizational values. And at the NRC, they are integrity, service, openness, commitment, cooperation, excellence, and respect. These principles are critically important to the success of our safety mission. They continue to guide our interactions within the staff and with our regulated community and with all other stakeholders. They are part of the staff's daily life at the NRC and promote mutual support, open communications, and a fully engaged staff. I believe an open and collaborative work environment encourages interdependence among the staff and promotes open discussion to help us make good decisions and provide the Commission with our best recommendations and to best serve the American public. The NRC has a long tradition of valuing diversity of ideas, different opinions, and questioning the status quo. In fact, we have a number of formal and informal programs that encourage the staff to raise differing views so that those views can be addressed in an open and transparent manner. We have demonstrated that differences of opinion within the staff can be addressed in a respectful and constructive manner. These differing views are frequently provided to the Commission for their consideration. It is through this open discussion that we most effectively execute our nuclear safety responsibilities. The staff is responsible for keeping the Commission completely and currently informed on all relevant matters. We accomplish this through a series of formal and informal mechanisms, including memoranda to the Commission, Commission papers, status reports, and oral briefings. The Commission provides direction to the staff through budget decisions and staff memoranda. You have already been made aware of the results of the 2011 Office of Personnel Management Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey. This survey measured employees' perceptions of whether and to what extent their organizations have the types of characteristics typically associated with high-performing, successful organizations. The fact that the NRC ranked first in all 4 categories examined by the survey is a result of the collective efforts of the entire staff to adhere to the principles that I just mentioned. I am extremely proud of the skilled and conscientious staff with whom I work at the NRC. They have maintained their focus on our mission and the fundamentals essential to doing an excellent job. It is because of our dedicated technical and administrative staff that we are the preeminent nuclear regulator in the world, and through our combined efforts, we strive to serve the American public in the best way we can. This concludes my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Chairman Issa and Ranking Member Cummings. I am pleased to be here before you today as the committee examines the management structure of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. As General Counsel, I supervise a staff of approximately 110 people. My office reports to the full Commission and provides a full range of legal services, including counsel and representation to both the Commission and to the offices that report to the Commission or NRC Chairman, and to the offices that report to Mr. Borcher, the Executive Director for Operations, often referred to as the NRC staff. As General Counsel, I am responsible for providing legal counsel to the Chairman and the other Commissioners, as well as the senior agency staff. I often interact with the Chairman and with the other Commissioners, and I strive to be fully responsive to the needs of all Commissioners in carrying out these responsibilities. I have been a career employee with the NRC since 1978. I began my legal career as an attorney in what was then called the Office of the Executive Legal Director, where my initial duties primarily involved enforcement and oversight. I then served as a legal assistant and then executive assistant to Vice Admiral retired Kenneth M. Carr, who was a commissioner and then later chairman of the agency from 1989 to 1991. Upon conclusion of Chairman Carr's term, I became the director of the Commission's Office of Appellate Adjudication, the office that drafts the Commission's adjudicatory orders. Subsequently, I served for more than a decade as the agency's Deputy General Counsel, where my responsibilities included overseeing legal representation of the staff in NRC administrative proceedings. In April 2009, former Chairman Klein initiated my appointment to serve as General Counsel, which was subsequently approved by the Commission. These diverse positions have given me substantial understanding of the legal framework governing Commission operations, particularly the Atomic Energy Act, the Energy Reorganization Act of 1974, and the Reorganization Plan No. 1 of 1980. The Energy Reorganization Act, of course, establishes the Commission and with respect to its members provides that each shall have equal responsibility and authority in all decisions and actions of the Commission, shall have full access to information relating to the performance of the duties or responsibilities, and shall have one vote. The Chairman is granted particular duties as the official spokesperson of the agency and as the principal executive officer with respect to the agency's executive and administrative functions, and as reflected in the Reorganization Plan. In carrying out these duties, the Energy Reorganization Act instructs the Chairman to see that the faithful execution of the policies and decisions of the Commission, and that he shall be governed by the general policies of the Commission and by such regulatory decisions, findings, and determinations as the Commission may be by law be authorized to make. As I have advised the Commission, the NRC's enabling legislation reflects that the structure of the agency is framed around two core principles, the rule of the majority and the delegation of executive leadership to the Chairman, which includes carrying out the Commission's policies. In providing legal advice and counsel to the Commission, I am ever mindful of these principles and believe they were intended to work in harmony to ensure the effective operation of the NRC. I'd be pleased to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, and I'll recognize myself for the first round for 5 minutes. Mr. Borchard, the earlier testimony, I'm going to follow up on that quickly. Have you ever been asked to withhold, limit, edit any information given to the other 4 commissioners that the Chairman has?
There have been Commission papers and some budget proposal documents that have been altered under the Chairman's direction. Yes, sir.
Were those alterations in detail made available so that the commissioners could understand that, or were they withheld?
The original staff proposal you're asking about?
Yes, sir.
Eventually, I believe it was made available to the Commission.
And eventually doesn't quite get it. Were they initially denied?
Some of these documents were draft documents that the Chairman's office had seen and provided direction on how the final document should be prepared.
So the Chairman spoon-feeds the commissioners what he wants them to see. Is that maybe a little excess, but basically a direction?
I would describe it as the Chairman influences the information and the timing of the information that is provided to the Commission on occasion.
So he lied to us. He told us that he never did that. He told us he didn't withhold information, and he said they had full and complete, although he used some interesting words a couple of times, but I held him back, and you were both here, to make sure that he said that. What you're telling me here today is that the commissioners, the 4 commissioners, do not have equal and unfettered access to the same information, even though they're asked to make decisions based on the information they receive. Is that correct?
I'd say that the Chairman influences the timing of the information that's provided.
Oh, so he knows about it sooner, and they know about it when he's ready for them to know about it?
On occasion, yes.
Okay. Is that open and collaborative? Is that consistent with the 3,500 people that you said fall under you and the way things work?
It's not a practice we use within the staff, no, sir.
Okay. And there's been allegations of what, under the definition that the Federal Government uses, of intimidation and what are the other? Harassment, intimidation, and a hostile environment existed at the NRC. And in 1 or more cases, has that been exhibited by the Chairman?
Yes, sir.
But he doesn't have it. No, never mind. I won't go into it. He doesn't have anything to apologize. Mr. Burns, you've done a very good job in your opening statement of explaining that, for whatever reason, Congress gave incredible authority to ignore the other 4 commissioners to the Chairman, right?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, what the question?
That the powers, the executive powers, are virtually everything for the Chairman. You basically, that's basically what you said in your opening statement.
I don't think that is what I said. I said that there are 2 principles at play. The one principle, majority rules, and the other one, that executive leadership has been focused through the reorganization plan in the Chairman. Now, in doing that, the Chairman— But
executive leadership in a normal company is anything that the majority of the board thinks is wrong by the executive is, in fact, second-guessable by the board. In this case, you're saying that's not the case.
I don't believe I said that at all.
Well, but you're the legal definer. If 3 of the commissioners think the Chairman is dead wrong in administration, executive, or other activities, in this case 4 of them think he's wrong on many occasions, shouldn't that, in fact, be determinative of his behavior? Or are you saying that he has the authority to ignore them in his dealing with ordering staff, some 4,000 staff around?
I'm not going to comment on the Chairman's behavior.
No, I'm not asking for the behavior. I'm asking about authority.
With respect to his authority, a majority of the Commission, particularly in policy matters, adjudications, and rulemaking, set the policy of the agency, and the Chairman is honor-bound to carry that out. With respect to administrative matters, for the most part, administrative matters are delegated to the Chairman. There are some specific examples or exceptions within the reorg plan. Appointments, for example, Mr. Borchard's appointment and my appointment, he initiates, but the full commission approves.
Okay, so there's a few times in which he has to go to his board. The rest of the time, he runs the show.
And that's the contemplation under the reorganization plan.
Okay. Clearly today, we were mostly talking about his management failures, at least relative to the 4,000 staff members and the 4 commissioners. But one very quick question. I heard Mr. Tierney read verbatim the law that allowed this emergency powers. Was Japan under the regulation of this commission?
No, and I don't think
So you issued an opinion that everything he did was legal and within his jurisdiction, and I heard the verbatim, and now I'm a layperson, so I want to be told why I didn't understand, but I heard, I think, the complete phrase of authority, and we're talking about halfway around the world, a nuclear power plant, and actually several reactors, were in distress, and he asserted unilateral right to completely dismiss any participation by his commission. That power under what was read to us today, and I'm not an expert on it, now you are, that power was limited to the 102 sites in the U.S. Nowhere did it appear, and I guess some other sites, but nowhere did it appear to have anything to do with a foreign sovereign nation and their reactors, did it? The intent of that statute, that right.
Mr. Chairman, the interpretation I gave to that statute and to those provisions in the reorg plan were not that the chairman was suddenly the nuclear regulator of the country of Japan. What it had to do is that during the question I was asked, during the course of the accident, was when the emergency center was stood up and the chairman was in the ops center, and the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission was asked for information regarding recommendations to protect U.S. citizens in Japan and U.S. servicemen through the ambassador and through the administration. He asked me what the question was it within his purview to communicate that information? I gave him the opinion that, yes, it was. This was not an usurpation of all the powers of the commission.
And my time has long expired. I wanted to just make clear that you gave him an opinion, so it's not him asserting some unilateral, but you're telling him that that phrase, that's part of the law, gave him the authority to lock out his 4 commissioners. That wasn't the main reason today. We were talking about management. So it's important for me to understand that, because that action, which was not the focus of this hearing, if there's a mistake, it's yours, not his.
Yes, and there was no mistake on my part.
I think there was a big damn mistake.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr.
But that's
Chairman,
a separate. But that is a judgment call, not a legal call.
No, that's a legal judgment call. And my legal judgment, given the intention of the President of the United States in 1980 in issuing the plan and providing for the concentration under emergency circumstance of power into the chairman, that the chairman acted reasonably. I've had no commissioner tell me that my view is wrong. I followed the opinion of my predecessor advising Chairman Reserve after 9/11, when there was not a particular threat to a U.S. power plant or facility.
Thank you. Ranking members recognized.
Thank you very much. May I have 8 minutes, Mr. Chairman? Thank you very much. Following the Fukushima disaster, the NRC took a number of actions related to the emergency, including ensuring that 2 U.S. West Coast nuclear plants would remain safe from possible tsunami effects, and standing up an emergency operations center at the NRC to monitor events as they unfolded in Japan. The operations center remained in monitoring mode to assist Japan and the multitude of U.S. citizens in that country, and to deal with the ongoing emergency at the Fukushima plant. Mr. Burns, as the NRC General Counsel, you wrote a memo on March 17, 2011, and your memo concludes that the Chairman had the legal authority under his emergency powers to issue the press release that provided the 50-mile protective guidance for United States residents and other interests in Japan. In that memo, you said this, and I quote, "The Chairman's actions fit within his authorities under Section 3 of the reorganization plan, under which all authorities vested in the Commission pertaining to an emergency are transferred to the Chairman." Mr. Burns, is that correct?
That's correct. That's in my memorandum.
And can you tell us simply how the Chairman's actions were proper under current law?
Yes, and Ranking Member Cummings, the other thing I would emphasize, it was not only, I think, a reasonable representation of the emergency powers, but as the official spokesperson of the agency, he had information that was developed by the staff and communicated that. So even if you disagree with respect to emergency powers, I think as a spokesman he could do that. The point I made, and I actually think you read the quote from President Carter during the testimony of the Commissioners, is the purpose of this of the plan in Section 3 was to focus the emergency response responsibility into a single person, the Chairman. That was a finding coming out of the 3 Mile Island accident. And I'm looking at that, and again, looking at the memo of my predecessor to Chairman Meserve, I felt, though it was a novel question, which I acknowledge in the memo, I thought that was a reasonable judgment.
And you were using your legal judgment, your legal expertise, is that correct?
Yes, I was, sir.
Some have alleged that the Chairman should not have used his emergency authorities to respond to the Fukushima crisis because the incident did not, and I think this is what Chairman Issa was going to, did not involve a U.S. nuclear facility or materials licensed or regulated by the Commission. But in your memo, you obviously disagree. You said that you do not view the language of the Reorganization Act of 1980 as, and I quote, I'm quoting you, limiting the scope of the Chairman's emergency response authority only to incidents involving particular NRC licensed facilities, end of quote. Is that right?
That's correct.
And in your memo, you pointed to an opinion by former NRC General Counsel following the attacks on 9/11. Here's what you said, and I quote, I note that the former General Counsel Sear gave a similar opinion in the context of an agency response to 9/11-2001 terrorist attacks and determining that the absence of an actual event or damage to a nuclear facility or materials did not limit the Chairman's authority to exercise his emergency powers. Mr. Burns, can you explain what that 2001 opinion said and why it's useful for understanding how the Chairman exercised his authorities during the Fukushima crisis?
Certainly. Briefly stated, after the 9/11 attacks, the NRC again stood up its emergency center, I think primarily in a monitoring mode or an enhanced monitoring mode. There was again no specific threat to a particular U.S. facility. It kept in that operation for a few months, and the Chairman Meserve at the time, I think some of his commissioners wondered, well, how long is this going to go on? And I think he asked the General Counsel Sear, to give an opinion. And her opinion, again, she said, we understand what, in terms of the text in the reorg plans, but she said, looking at, again, at President Carter's transmittal statement and looking at the general purpose is to focus the emergency response responsibility in the single official, that was a reasonable action on her part to do. I mean, it was a reasonable action on the part of Chairman Meserve in the 9/11 context to do, and I adapted that. And again, I concede it was a novel question.
Now, Mr. Burns, this has been alleged that the Chairman, in violation of his statutory responsibilities, does not keep the Commission properly informed. In your transcribed interview with the committee staff, however, you stated that the individual commissioners have a wide variety of ways to get information they need to do their jobs. For example, any commissioner can ask agency staff for information, and each commissioner holds regular meetings with senior NRC staff. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In your interview, you said this, and I quote, the Commission can ask for information within its functions, and it's not restricted to asking for the information that the Chairman thinks that the commissioners ought to have. They can ask for anything within those functions. There's some balancing, again, about potential burdens and all that, but essentially that's a fairly powerful tool, end of quote. Is it fair to say that each commissioner has tools at his or her disposal to keep themselves informed?
I think it is, and I think that's what both the Energy Reorganization Act and the Reorganization Plan provide. Could I make there's one footnote I would add to that, Mr. Cummings, and that's this. In matters involving the budget, the Chairman is responsible for budget presentation and budget development. And so actually the view that we have is that in terms of the timing, there's some influence in terms of the timing. It doesn't mean that the Commission can't get the information, but it is not real time because, again, the contemplation of the reorg plan is that the Chairman presents a budget. Once it's presented, then information is fair game to the Commissioner.
Now, did you also say that, did you inform committee staff that during your transcribed interview that you were unaware of any instances in which the Chairman withheld information or failed to inform the Commission in breach of his statutory responsibilities?
Yes, I'm not aware of them.
All right. Is it fair to say that each Commissioner, Mr. Burns, can you describe to the committee what you believe the statute requires of the Chairman in terms of keeping the Commission informed?
I think in the reorganization plan in Section 2C or 2D talks about the Chairman's responsibility and the EDO through the Chairman. It defines that or outlines that responsibility. And with respect to that, that can be implemented through the Commission's internal procedures in terms of information flow and the like. And as you described from my interview, is that Commissioners can ask staff for information. The last thing I would note is that the statute also provides, in effect, a safety valve, that if any employee or officer of the Commission believes that there is critical safety information or security information the Commission should be aware of, it can communicate with the Commission.
And finally, do you believe that individual Commissioners have any obligation to seek out information they believe they need?
Well, I think that each Commissioner has to decide for themselves what information they need in carrying out their responsibilities, and I think just as a matter of their functioning, they have an obligation and I think an ability to do that.
Thank the gentleman. Yield myself 5 minutes for the purpose of questions. Thank both of you for your service at the NRC and your testimony here today. Mr. Borchert, the issue of information sharing certainly is critical for the Commission doing its job well. If the Commission is going to take a vote that they all have the ability to make informed decisions and all have the same information. In your opinion, as the senior staff member, do you feel that the staff feels comfortable sharing information? Because it's been made a point that all the Commissioners have the right to ask for information. But do the staff subordinate to you feel comfortable in sharing information with the other Commissioners if it's contrary to a view they know that the Chairman holds?
Well, I think there's been a longstanding practice that the staff is responsive to individual Commissioners' requests for information through oral, conversations. That continues. There is a higher degree of apprehension, though, today under the current environment, as the first panel discussed, that has, at least for me, a concern that there could possibly be some reluctance to provide information as timely and as candidly.
And with that, you reference in response to a request for information. And I guess if there's not a request for information from a Commissioner, but staff has information they think is relevant, do they feel like they, one, have to wait to be asked about it, and even then are hesitant, or do they feel free to share what they know, even if it's not been asked because it's relevant to something that's going to come before the Commission?
Well, I think it's informative to separate these discussions into two different types. There's an informal conversation that occurs between an individual Commissioner and perhaps an individual office director that reports to me. That's a casual conversation that has a free flow of information. Normally, both parties would raise topics of interest. The other methods of communication are far more formal. Those are documents that are typically signed out either by myself or by the office director to provide the status of an activity or perhaps to raise a potential policy issue to the Commission. Those discussions are much more formalized into written correspondence.
And in both, there's a chilling aspect today because of the current environment of the staff sharing information, whether it's informal or formal?
Well, there's a change in practice, I think, that goes to the discussion from the earlier panel, and that is the historical practice, as I understood it through my 28 years at the NRC, is that if the staff felt that there was information that was would be of interest to the Commission, that the staff would fault to the side of providing that information in some kind of a written document, so the Commission could decide whether or not it was of interest to them and whether or not they wanted to adopt it as a policy issue for their consideration. Now, what's happened more on occasion is that the Chairman's office has made a decision as to the timing of when that information would go forward. So that was a fairly significant, from the staff's perspective, change in practice.
And clearly then an intent to control the information that's provided to the other Commissioners.
Or to control, as the Chairman has described it in the past, control the agenda of the Commission so that he could monitor the Commission's activities. And by Commission, I mean the 5 Commissioners that were at the first panel, not the staff, technical staff's activities.
And when you say monitor the commissions, do you think there's a precedent for the Chairman having the appropriateness of monitoring the efforts of the other Commissioners versus just setting the agenda?
Well, I think perhaps my choice of words saying monitoring was not quite right. What I meant to say is probably better to use your words, which was to set the agenda, to have the Commission agree as to what topics would be raised, when the Commission would issue directions to the staff on which topics. At any given time, we may have quite a few documents and decisions before the Commission that we're waiting for guidance on.
In your own capacity, have you been reprimanded or in any way had action taken against you by the Chairman for sharing information with other Commission members?
Well, I would put myself in the same category as a number of the other senior managers within the staff that have, received, a form of verbal direction and verbal counseling that, at least in my view, was not consistent with the NRC values that we endeavor to perform our own behavior with.
Right. And that was where your intent was to share what you thought was relevant information with other Commissioners, and the Chairman took exception to that.
Or yes, I mean, that would be an example. Another would be just on the development of a staff position, a recommendation that we would provide to the Commission.
If in your role as senior staff, would you tolerate that type of conduct from a subordinate of yours?
No, and in my testimony, that's the point I was trying to make, that the organizational values that we endeavor to live by, that I think are the reason the NRC has been such a strong regulator and such a good place to work for our employees, that kind of behavior is inconsistent with what we expect from the staff.
Thank you again for your testimony. My time has expired. I yield to the Chairman.
I thank the gentleman. I thank you both for being here today. As often happens with a second panel, people burn themselves on the first panel. I would ask if both of you would be willing to take additional questions from members in writing.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Then, without exception, that will be allowed for Mr. Cummings. Can we leave the record open for 2 weeks to allow members to put in questions and have them responded? Okay. Without objection, the record will be held for that purpose for 2 weeks. I thank you again for your testimony, and we stand adjourned on this hearing. And I would just announce that we have votes imminent. So immediately following this set of votes, we'll begin the minority hearing. Thank you. We stand adjourned.